Now cut that out right now. That's not funny.
Don't fuck with Jason. I'm sorry, don't frack with Jason. Because he'll get you. With his mama's head in the fridge. hell is that? What's going on here? Why are you playing scary music? I'm frightened. And what time is it? Well, it's flashback time! Good evening. That's right, it's flashback time. The nostalgic Podblast Flashback. I do this every Thursday night for a limited time, trying to bring everybody up to date with some of our earlier radio programs that we did on WTZA about a year ago. And this was a 2-hour program about pop culture that I hosted along with 2 other gentlemen you'll hear tonight. And then we're going to be live throughout this whole thing, taking your calls, talking about horror movies. This is a 2-part series. Tonight is part 1, primarily talking about the classic Universal horror movies. You know, Dracula, Frankenstein, Lon Chaney, Bela Lugosi, all the classics, Boris Karloff, the Castle horror films, the Hammer horror films in Britain. And then we'll get to the slasher films. And really next week, next Thursday night, we'll be talking about the movies that I like, that a lot of them are turning 40 years old. In fact, this Sunday at our regular time, 3:30 live, I'm going to do another horror show. It's Halloween in July in the Podblast land. That's what this is about. Most people are celebrating, or a lot of people are celebrating, Christmas in July. Well, I celebrate Halloween in July this year. Now that COVID-19 is behind us, we can start to have some real fun. And I went through a horror phase growing up, watching these movies endlessly on HBO and Showtime. And I can't wait to talk about the slasher movies and a project that I worked on myself. I got to do some gory stuff. It was a hell of a lot of fun. I have a lot of visual aids to show you as well. So what we're going to do is play a couple hours of a radio show. However, anytime you call in, I will stop the tape and take your call. But this is a very educational program. And there's a lot of clips, a lot of interviews. It's one of the better shows we ever did. And we didn't put it on YouTube until tonight. This was live radio, so we didn't have it on camera like we normally do. I do every Thursday at 3:30 Atlanta Eastern Time in the Nostalgic Podblast Facebook group. And if you're on Facebook, why don't you join? We're doing contests all the time. That way you'll know when we're live. And then Thursday night here on YouTube is when I do the flashback. So I think I'll play a little trailer of what we're going to talk about tonight that we produced for the radio station. And here it is. If I can get it to go.
Are you old enough to remember this? If you remember that classic scene, then tune in Saturday at 2 p.m. to the Nostalgic Pop Culture Pop Blast. This time it's our 2-part special to horror movies. Join us as we reminisce about classic Universal monster movies, the slasher flicks of the 1980s, and all of the movies that make you jump and scream. Featuring many classic clips and interviews with the stars, plus your phone calls. That's the Nostalgic Pop Culture Pop Blast. Saturdays at 2 p.m. right here on Talk of Atlanta, WTZA 102.1 FM, 1010 AM, and talkofatlanta.com.
You recognize that music? Of course, that's from The Exorcist that we're going to discuss tonight on the Podblast Flashback. I think I'll jump right into the radio portion, the live radio portion replay of tonight's show, and then I'll be back with you live. And throughout this, I'll be right here with you. I can man the phones, and I'll stop if you want to call in and talk about anything. And I'm going to show some collectibles and items from my collection that pertain to horror movies throughout. So sit back, relax, make yourself a drink, and let's listen to the Nostalgic Podblast Flashback.
Hey, fellas, you know what time it is?
It's Podblast time.
It's Podblast time!
You know,
You didn't have the mic on.
I mean,
Now,
really.
wait a minute.
I
Now,
mean,
wait
come
a
on.
minute.
I mean, my mic, we started the show, Chance, we started the show, and my mic wasn't even on.
My
And the music's too loud. I mean, come on.
No. I like the power.
Oh,
I like the power.
Well, here it is. What is it? A little after 2 o'clock. Oh, it's-
Saturday the 14th of
Yeah.
March, the day
Yeah,
after
yeah.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Live from the Oxygen Financial Studios in Wilburn. It's the Nostalgic Podcast, everyone.
I'm Al Hardy.
And I'm Tom.
And I'm Chance. Hello, Atlanta.
Hey.
As some people say, Chase.
Yeah, my whole life. People
When I first met you, I think I called you Chase, and I couldn't get that. Remember, Al? I couldn't get that out of my head.
That's right. It was always Chase. It was always Chase.
And what about the last name? I'm like a wine cooler. Chance Bartels. It's Bartels. I don't care.
Bartels.
My whole life, though, people. Hey,
Yes.
Bartels.
Well, Siri on my phone says Bartels. Chance Bartels.
Right.
Well, the Siri's stupid. Siri doesn't know how to talk anyway.
So is Alexa.
So, yes. Well, yeah, not as dumb as Siri though. But so, did you ever have the Bartels? The Bartels
Bartels and James.
Bartels
wine
and
cooler.
James wine cooler. I can't talk.
I hate to admit it. Yeah, I've
Were
had
they
a
any
couple.
good?
Back,
I mean, they
back
still
in the
make 'em?
day.
They still make them.
That I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they
I
do.
think they do. They make bars. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure
Remember
they
those
do.
two old dudes sitting on a swing
Yes.
or something
Yeah,
on a
yeah.
porch?
Those were great
Knocking 'em
commercials, by
back.
the way.
Hey,
I
if
like
any-
those.
if
That's
anybody,
nostalgia right there,
that's
right?
true. If anybody's had an experience with Ripple, MD 2020, Thunderbird,
You
call
big
us.
dummy.
Call us at 678-996-1776 and tell us your Bartles and James or your Ripple or your wine story. What we used to do, I worked in a Belo supermarkets, which are long gone.
What kind of supermarket?
Belo supermarket.
Oh, okay.
And the wine coolers.
Bilo. I think it's Bilo.
No, it's Belo.
Is it?
No, it's called
Well, there
Bilo.
was a Bilo here
Yes, there
in
was.
Georgia.
But,
Yes, it
but
was.
Tom is schooling us. It's Bilo, not
It's with
Bilo.
BE dash or hyphen
Okay.
LO and Virginia. Now there
Oh.
there was Bilos too.
There was, yeah,
BI
Bilo was
dash
here.
L.
Yeah.
Yes. However, what we had was my phone just went off. What we had was the wine coolers and everything in a section where you can just go and pick them out like the beer.
Ah.
And we'd hide right behind the doors and catch people stealing them all the time.
Well, can you
I
blame them?
mean, because the Ripple bottles and stuff were so small back then. That's not even our topic. I'm sorry, I got us off on the topic we weren't even on.
We're
today.
talking about horror movies.
Oh, we've got a horror.
Wow. I don't know if I'm still live. This gets to the horror portion of the show in just a moment. But in case I'm not. All right, now we're back. Geez, it jumped. So let me resume where we left off here.
dying from it, but they don't tell you that.
Oh no, of course not. It was sensational. I went to Kroger last night about. I guess it was about
I'm sorry.
9:00. I know.
I'm a
But
Publix guy.
Well, Publix. Susan,
Well, I like Publix and Kroger.
well,
and,
Susan had
you
been
know,
to Publix earlier and
I even go to Ingles.
and bought a bunch of stuff, but so much stuff was already off the shelves. But I went to Kroger. I couldn't because I was waiting for pizza. 'Cause
Right.
I had delicious Johnny's pizza last night.
Well, that's good pizza.
Yeah.
You didn't bring any in for us.
No, I didn't because you said you didn't like pizza. But
Well, I
any-
do like pizza,
but
not every
anyway,
day.
I couldn't believe it. You walk down the bakery aisle or the
All the bread's
all
gone.
the bread. I mean, it's just empty everywhere. It's like a famine or something.
All the toilet paper's gone.
It's a madhouse.
It's funny.
A madhouse.
That's funny. Exactly. And why is all the toilet paper gone? This is not a diarrhea type of a virus.
You know, it's
I feel bad for new moms that need diapers and things to sterilize
Oh, yeah,
the baby's
exactly.
butt. I mean,
Exactly.
damn.
No, exactly. Clark, you said you went to where'd you go the other day?
I went to Publix, and they were out of
because
you
they
know,
had a BOGO.
well, every Wednesday they have new sales, and
Yeah.
they had a BOGO: buy one Clorox wipe, get one free.
Yeah.
Wow, just waltz over, none's left,
Nothing.
and that was about 1:00 in the afternoon on
That's
Wednesday.
It's
So
a
they-
snow day every day.
Yeah, it's great.
Luckily, I still have some.
Well,
but I was just
Yeah, and so do I.
You know, it reminds me of a George Carlin joke he did a long time ago where he said, you ever stuck in a line, whether you're at an amusement park or whatever, a movie theater, grocery store? Well, here's how you get to the line. Just start coughing, go, excuse me, I'm sick.
Yeah.
It's not funny,
I know.
but
I know. Did you see that? Did you see that one
These
picture on
days.
Facebook? A guy put a policeman and pulled him over, and he held another. I've got.
Oh, yeah, I
I've got
saw
the
that.
robot,
That's
and he had a
funny.
mask on.
that's
It's
funny.
funny. I mean, people are making fun of it at the same time, but it's but also
You see the Facebook meme? I put it up earlier today. It has, Freddy Krueger, I guess it was from the Friday 13th movies.
Yeah. Wow.
And he's standing behind a tree, looking really mean and nasty. And he's holding up a thing of Charmin. Said, come and get it.
Oh yeah.
Well,
that was funny.
they did the same thing with a Friday the 13th guy. Jason.
Oh, okay. That's what it was. Friday the 13th guy.
Yeah.
we'll get to the topic, but we have to
But
address
that was
the
horror
elephant
movies.
in the room. Tom Williams is now a reality TV star.
That's right.
He was on
Actuality.
Lifetime this week, a show called Bride and Prejudice.
Yes.
And I have a couple questions for you, Tom. If that's all right.
It was on Wednesday night.
Him and his son.
I still haven't watched it.
We watched it.
I
brought a
recorded
clip
it, so
here.
you can come over and watch it anytime.
Okay.
No, it's a show called Bride and Prejudice. I had not heard of it, but it airs on the Lifetime Network Wednesdays at 10.
Right.
And Tom, my question to you is, how the heck did you wind up on this show? Did you audition or?
Yeah. Well, Chris auditioned, and he called me. Chris is my son, and he called me and said, "Hey, Dad, you want to be on a reality show?" I went, "Okay, fine." I mean, he said, "If you do, I'll make X amount of dollars if we get in."
Right.
And they'll record you and have you come out, and you'll make some money too, et cetera, et cetera. Not as much as him, of course. And I went, yeah, okay, fine. I didn't think he'd win because he was up against so many other people.
But Chance showed me a clip on his phone, and he's really good.
Yeah, he is good.
He could be an actor.
No, he is good.
But there's no
is
script,
good.
right? There's just a basic outline.
There's a basic outline, and the producers talk you through what they're discussing, why you are in this particular scene. Here's what's going on. Here's what's being discussed. Go. And of course they want you to be controversial, and I refuse to be controversial. I left that up to Blair's mother, who was in quite a few episodes.
And she's the quote unquote racist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess that's how they are badging her in the show. I'm not. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
you played it cool and neutral. But
so yeah. So you even sent me a few comments that people had said that then
On Twitter.
Tom's playing cool and blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah, and that's fine. And I don't know how many episodes I'm in. I don't even know how many shows there actually. Oh, now you decide.
Well, how long?
Just 11.
How long did you shoot?
Well, I mean, it's shot for many months, for 2 or 3 months.
Oh, okay.
And I was in. I think they must have shot me 4 or 5 times.
that's when you disappeared because you went on radio silence from Al and I for a while because you were
Yeah.
busy with the show.
Yeah.
I guess
Yeah.
you had a ponytail then, which you
Yes,
don't
I did.
now.
Yes, I did. I had a Cadillac, had an XT5, which got totaled. Well, we won't go into that. But yeah, and I can't give away the ending, can I?
No,
I
don't.
can't.
Yeah,
No
don't do
spoilers. No.
Okay, never mind.
NDAs. You probably signed an NDA.
But anyway, check
If
you
out
want-
Lifetime and
wait.
see Tom.
Yeah, if you want to know the end, call us at 678-996-1776,
We are live.
and I will tell you the ending. Not
Very
really.
cool.
Well,
Very cool.
today we're talking with the Podblast is on horror movies. It's actually a two-parter. It's a two-parter. So next week you hear the part 2.
That's a lie.
And I don't know. Everybody has a favorite horror movie. Now I like the old Universal horror movies. I never was into Friday the 13th.
Well,
and all
those are the slasher movies.
I don't
yeah.
care. I never cared for
But
those.
Chance, you like those.
I
right?
do. I used to get Fangoria magazine, which was like
Yes,
Starlog.
I got that too.
And you like Monsters of Film, famous
Famous
Monsters of Filmland.
Yeah.
And in my mind, the famous Monsters of Filmland is like the Playboy, and the Fangoria is the
It is.
the Hustler. Of Gore magazine.
That's a very good analogy.
It's graphic.
Is it still that way?
Fangoria is very, very graphic.
Really?
It's still
That's-
being published too. It was a division of Starlog magazine.
That's a very good analogy of that magazine. You're right. You're absolutely just like there's a modelers magazine that has all different figures, mostly horror figures, and there's one called RC Modeling or something like that.
oh, like
And
RC Media.
Yeah.
Partners.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, it's like that. Now, granted, you were also an extra on The Walking Dead.
I did a stunt or two.
And
Yes.
If you ever see the Walking Dead pinball machine out there in the world, Chance is on that pinball machine. You got to look for him.
Yeah.
But
On the
he's-
playfield.
He's on the playfield. He's down the lower right, I think lower right near the flipper, near the right flipper, and that's him. So there you go. So you've been immortalized in a pinball.
Well,
And
gee, I
I'm a
feel like
pinball
a
fan,
nobody
too.
over here.
Well,
I haven't done
no,
any
no,
of that
no,
stuff.
Well,
No.
but go ahead. Mike, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is a really cool topic. A two-parter, as Al mentioned, and we get into the slasher movies, which is my forte in part 2. But at the end of today's show, because we are a live show, but we have a pre-recorded segment, so I just want to explain once again to everyone out there, we will be live around 3:40 to take your calls about your favorite horror movie. And I want you to know that when you call in and we're in the pre-recorded segment, we can't answer the phone until we go live again. So we're not ignoring you.
I've figured a way to do that.
Oh, good. Well, then
We'll talk about it after
corrected.
we get into
Well,
the
that's
show.
nice of you, Al, being the
Yes.
board
I can-
operator.
I can-
That's
And we were
good.
supposed to go tonight to the Plaza Theater to see Bride of Frankenstein,
Yes.
but it got canceled
We-
because of coronavirus
That's
fears.
right. With Professor Malta, he will scare the hell out of you. But yeah, he.
they
I
canceled
asked him, and he said they weren't going to cancel. Then all of a sudden they canceled it.
And they
Well, they
moved
postponed it
to
till May, right?
May
May.
16th, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
So
it's
we make,
always on a Saturday night.
but Al Hardy Vision is always on and always open. The
We can
home
watch it
theater
at
at your
home.
house, we can watch it on
Well, I
Blu-ray.
watched it this morning on my
Oh, you did?
big screen
Well,
and high
boo-boo.
def, and it looked good.
Okay.
Guys, and there's a horror movie in my collection I want to show you called Killer Fish. It's a knockoff of Piranha. And I have it on
Ooh.
16
That
millimeter
sounds
film.
really cheesy.
It's
It
a
does.
lot of fun. It's
Is
a
it
lot.
red? Is it
James
red?
Franciscus is in it.
That
The guy
sounds
from
like
Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Sharknado. you know?
Francisco?
James Franciscus. He was the star of Beneath the Planet of the Apes, the second movie. He had a beard. He played Brent in that
Okay.
movie.
Okay.
And also Margot Hemingway is in it and Lee Majors. And the best part of all,
Hemingway.
a
Yeah.
big fat guy gets eaten by a bunch of piranha.
I want to see it right there.
It's awesome, man.
Boy, they get eat him up real good.
I'm a Tom Savini guy. I love
Yeah.
gory makeup. You know, Dawn of the Dead. And you were talking about Walking Dead, of course. Night of the Living Dead, 1968, started that. George Romero was the start
But
of the
I like
zombie
some
craze.
of those movies, and of course, Tom and I like the older stuff. And if you go to Tom's house, he's got every Frankenstein model that was ever made.
That's right.
Absolutely. And by the way, Tom, we got to thank you. We have stickers that he
Podblast
brought to the
stickers.
studio, and we have put them
that's
all
right.
over the studio.
Excuse
You'll
me.
see nostalgic Podblast
That's not a Corona
logo
cough.
sticker in several areas of this very studio. So when the weekday crew show up, when Kara shows up in the morning,
They'll say,
it'll be one of the first
heck?
things she sees, and
What
she'll
the
probably remove it. But
Well, I
Probably
want to
so.
say hi to my buddy over there at the Big Daddy-O's Irish Pub because he's a big fan of the show.
Daddy-O's.
Yeah, he loves the show.
I was listening yesterday
Daddy-O's.
in
yeah,
studio with Kara.
he liked the
Friday
show
morning.
we did on the Munsters and the Addams Family.
Now, I've never been there. Where's Daddy-O's? Where's it at?
It is on Lawrenceville Swanee Road, not very far.
Let's go
Okay.
there
Oh,
maybe
okay.
after today's
All right.
show and get some grub,
Okay, well, maybe we'll
and
do
we'll
that.
pay.
Everyone but Al.
And they come in every Friday and bring food here, and it's delicious.
That's nice.
Did you
That's
guys, getting back to horror, did you see the Piranha remake from 2010 Richard Dreyfuss was in?
great. No.
No, I didn't see
Greg
that.
Nicotero, who does the effects for Walking Dead, worked on that project. It's hilarious. It's like a modern day camp classic.
Well, speaking
it's great.
Gory
Gory
horror
tech,
movies
too.
with piranhas, do you think Jaws was a horror movie?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah,
yes.
yeah, I think
Totally.
so. I think
It's
so.
terrifying
Yeah.
to this
That's
day.
But if you're a scuba diver or no sharks, then it's not that
No.
scary. to
Well, I
you.
grew up on the beach, and I saw it.
Did you laugh at it?
No, it was pretty scary, but it didn't stop me from
No.
going swimming.
Now, what about the movie Phantasm?
Oh, great movie.
Now, did you ever see Phantasm?
saw it,
With
yeah.
with a sphere with a thing.
Yeah.
that
Yeah. The
went
big
to your
ball.
forehead and
Yeah.
drilled the blood.
Yeah, yeah.
That was great.
And how about scanners where their heads would
Oh,
explode?
let's see. Now that to me was a great
Mhm.
movie because we used to take that and dub it to Digibeta at work and back it up and play it,
Right.
and just analyze it. And it was great. It was the first great horror effect I remember ever doing that.
We
to.
should watch that again sometime. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I've seen it.
But I'm sure if you go back and watch it now and compare it to today's effects, you go, oh, that was crappy.
And guys, we got to acknowledge Max von Sydow passed away. I know it's been talked
Yep.
about a lot during the week, but we're the weekend crew.
Hail
and for our
Ming.
audience, we got to say,
Now, he was-
Hail Ming.
Hail
Hail
Ming.
Ming.
Hail Ming. That's what
Yeah,
I
he
said.
was in some horror movies.
Yes, he was.
Oh, yeah,
he
yeah.
was great.
Man, he was great. But
Yeah, he was good.
He was very good. But Ming
Ming the Merciless.
Ming the Merciless was one of his great
1980, Sam Jones was the star. Loved it. And they remember they did an X-rated Flesh Gordon parody of that
characters. Oh
movie.
yeah.
I know.
That was a funny movie.
Yeah, the ship looks like something I can't say over the air,
Yeah,
but
it
It looks like
I guess-
a penis.
okay.
Okay, well, all
yeah.
right.
That's what it looks like.
You went there.
Hey guys, do you think it's time that we start the pre-recorded, or is that your call, Al?
We
Are
can
you
do it in
ready?
a few minutes.
What-
Okay.
what-
All right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure we have time to take calls. But you know what? If the phones light up, we'll go past 4:00. How about that?
That's true.
By
That's
popular
true.
demand.
We shall. Now he also Max von Sydow. Sorry, pardon me. He also plays some good Nazis.
That he did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you watched the new Amazon Prime Hunters with
No,
Al
I haven't watched
Pacino?
it. I have
It's
Prime, I haven't
weird.
watched
It's
it.
weird, but at the same time, it makes you hate Nazis.
That's the one with
all
Al
over
Pacino.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I haven't watched
it
that
really
yet.
makes you hate those darn Nazis. I tell you, let me tell you that. He was in Ingmar Bergman's The Seventh Seal in 1957. He did so many movies, Chance, that
He did.
but he even played Jesus. You remember
Wow.
that?
And
You
the
remember
greatest
that?
story ever
Superstar.
told.
Ringo,
Yeah.
very nice. Back in 1965,
John
was also-
Huston directed that.
he was also the priest in
The Exorcist.
That's
Very
right.
good.
And we're going to cover that today or
Yeah.
next week.
next
in
week.
second
But
part
The
of Harley.
Exorcist, I saw it. It scared me to death, but I still like the movie.
Yeah. He was
Before we
He's a
wrap
good
on
actor.
Max Unseato, can I please say my favorite line from Flash Gordon? He said,
yeah.
it's real quick. Remove the Earth Woman. Prepare her for our pleasure. I just like that line.
Is that what he said?
Yes.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. Only Chance would remember that.
Hey,
Yeah.
can you do the Mel Blanc?
Are you buck?
There you go. He does that. one
Twiggy.
too.
Mel Blanc.
Oh well, Mel Blanc.
All right, you ready to check
and,
out?
And it says, and Mel Blanc's tombstone. It says that's all, folks.
That's true.
We'll be back live 678-996-1776 to take your calls about your favorite horror movies, favorite scenes.
And
but
this
here,
is episode 1 of
One,
no
episode
6.
one, 6.
well, no, it was 1 of the horror movies.
Oh, sorry, sir. I'm sorry.
Bruh.
Yes,
I apologize.
Okay,
It's part 1 of part 2.
Okay.
Sorry,
Bruh.
Wizard.
All right, let's do that.
Okay.
We'll be back in about 90 minutes, commercial free.
Bruh.
Now that you have learned what you have learned, it would be well for you to return to your own country. I prefer to remain and protect those whom you would destroy. You are too late. My blood now flows through her veins. She will live through the centuries to come,
Yeah,
as I have lived.
You know what? You know what?
I'm not finished laughing.
You know what time it is?
Wait, Chance, what time is it?
My watch stopped.
It's Podblast time.
Yeah, babies.
All right.
Yeah.
Al here,
Tom here.
Chance here,
Hey, we
Hey,
went.
everybody.
Hey, we went out of order.
but we're here.
hey, we're going to be talking about some wonderful stuff today, as we promised last week, aren't we, Chance?
Yeah, we're going to talk about Universal monsters and all sorts of movie
I'm
monsters
scared.
and even some slasher films at the end, which I know you guys don't particularly care for, but that's my thing. But we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that's your thing because you like those slasher things. It's fine. But you know, a quick side note. So here I go again. Quick side note. Sid Haig passed.
He did. God
this
rest his
past
soul.
week. He was 80 some odd years old, 81 or 82.
I think he was 80.
Yeah, and he had some medical issues, and his wife had gone up on Facebook asking everyone for prayers and everything. And but sadly, he passed away, unfortunately, this past week. And so that's sad. I didn't mean to start the show on a
I had the
bummer,
pleasure
but-
of meeting Sid.
Did you? How
several
was he?
times.
Was he a nice guy?
Very, very nice, very kind. And I talked to him about something he'd forgotten about.
Spider
He'd-
Baby?
The Fall Guy, some of the cheese I like that Al doesn't care for.
Oh wait, so
An
he
80s show. He was on 4 episodes. I have them
Oh,
all
was
on
he really?
16 millimeter film.
was
yeah.
it just a bit part or what?
No, he
it?
was a guest star.
Was he? Oh really?
He was in it. It wasn't like in Star Trek where he played a cloaked guy for
Right,
half
right,
a second in Return of the Archons.
Yeah.
But he's of course well known for the horror movies he did
Sure he
years
is.
later. But
Yeah, and
quite a
then,
fan following.
and of course, one of his Lon Chaney Jr., not senior, but Lon Chaney Jr., as you all know as the Wolfman. He was in his last film, Spider Baby. Did you
I
know
don't
that?
remember that.
Yep, Spider
I
Baby.
didn't know that.
Yep, Spider Baby. And well, I had the magazine here. I don't have that with me today, but look it up. Look it up, Spider Baby. And it was
Spider
Lon Chaney's last motion.
You ever heard of that,
picture.
Chance? Yeah.
Last
No, I've
motion
never heard of it.
picture. I'm not saying he wasn't on TV after, because he was on a really good episode of Route 66, Al. That was the name of the show. And him and Karloff and Peter Lorre reprised their roles as their famous characters in the classic movies. Karloff got dressed up as Frankenstein for the last time, and so did Lon Chaney Jr. He dressed up as the Wolfman. Now the makeup was nowhere near as good as the original makeup by Mr. Pierce, the master makeup artist who came up with Frankenstein. and everything. But it was still interesting to see them in their roles, because Cheney, the Route 66 show starts off with his son in bed, and this guy creeps into the room, and they got the scary music playing and everything, and he's creeping in, and he's dressed up like the Hunchback of Notre Dame. That's very cool. Anyway, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but I wanted to bring up Sid Haig, and that's what we do on this podcast, because it's called a Pod Blast.
Our podcast, Pod Blast.
That's right.
Nostalgic Pod Blast.
And that was a nostalgic Pod Blast that I just pulled out of my head.
What was
Amazing.
his last movie?
Well, what,
Devil's
Cheney?
Rejects.
Cheney or Haig?
Haig.
Devil's the latest Devil's Rejects.
Well, no. There's one called Three from Hell. That's the latest one that just came out recently. We're talking 2019. Three from Hell is what it's called. I haven't seen it, but I know he's in it. That was his last actual feature
Yeah,
film.
but was it released in theaters or has
Yes.
it been?
Matter of fact, I think they had it, excuse me, at the Plaza Theater
in
here
Atlanta.
in Atlanta. Yeah. Matter of fact, Shane Morton,
That's right. They did. I
Yes,
remember
see?
seeing an ad for that. Yeah, you're right.
who plays Professor Morte.
He was born July 14th, 1939. He was 80 years old when he passed.
Well, we were
recently.
close. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just pulling up his IMDb to see his latest film.
But I haven't. I don't know too much about that film. I just remember seeing the ads for it, and that was his last appearance in a film. As far as
And he was in the old Batman show in the 60s.
oh, he was all over the place. But you know, we're getting away from.
character actor.
I'm sorry, but we are getting away from the classic horror.
The Universal horror
Universal.
movies.
We're talking Boris Karloff. Who else, Al? Come on, Al. Come on, Al.
Wake up, Al.
Come on, Al.
Boris Karloff?
No, I said, who are we talking about? Boris Karloff and I was
Bella?
like,
Bella?
Bella who?
Bella Lugosi.
All right, and then there's Lon Chaney Jr. Who else?
We had Frederick March, right?
Right,
Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Right.
Claude Rains. Did
Claude
we mention
Rains.
Claude
him?
Rains, Invisible
Claude
Man.
Rains. That's it, Claude Rains. I can't spell.
And
it.
again, Boris Karloff in The Mummy.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many of the classic horror films that came out, and pretty much Frankenstein started it all. I do believe.
Well, Universal, once they did Frankenstein, it was so popular, they said, well, that's it. That's what we're going to be doing.
Yeah,
You know?
and then they did a bunch of Frankenstein films after, which, it was followed up by The Bride of Frankenstein, which was actually quite good. Dr. Pretorius was great in that film, and how Karloff persona turned the monster into sort of a likable guy. I mean, remember when he smoked a cigar with a blind man? Oh, good, smoke good, and all that stuff.
Think about it is you think of Mel Brooks when you think of
Well,
with
see,
young
well, see,
Frankenstein.
yeah,
you
but
know?
yeah, but you know that, but he parodied it. I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was good, but it was great because I'm sorry, Young Frankenstein was great. It was fantastic, but it was so good that they used a lot of the original equipment and everything from the original Frankenstein that they got from the collector who continued to have it all. But the original Frankenstein, to me, was not as good as the follow-up Bride of Frankenstein. I just don't think it was quite as good.
And, a lot of the prints of Frankenstein, when, Frankenstein threw the little girl in the water, they didn't actually show her going into the water.
Yeah, because it's a censor.
A lot of prints, they cut that.
Yeah.
There were so many homages to that scene too, and different monster
There was.
characters of the Outer Limits did it. The Incredible Hulk did it. All sorts of. Getting back to Sid Haig, just want to say you're right. The last completed Three from Hell was the last release.
Right.
The last completed movie was a movie called Hanukkah, and then he was filming a movie called Abruptio. So I don't know if they're going to be able to use that. And they started pre-production on another film, Tabit's Traveling Carnival of Terrors. So
Well, obviously would depend on how much they actually shot with it.
right. Well, guys, this is the point of the Pod Blast where we like to talk about some things we left out, things that we made an error on. So we're going to introduce something brand new.
Yes, we're going to do that right now.
Correction Corner.
That's right. It's our correction corner.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that sounded so wonderful. Yeah.
Why don't you play it again, Al?
You can do that.
Correction Corner.
Oh, that sounds like we're all in the bathroom. Well, echo. I'm sorry.
Don't tell everybody that.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we're in a circle in the bathroom.
Well, Chance, take it away with correction court, because I know last week we talked about the Munsters versus
the Addams family
with 2 Ds.
That's right. And after we wrapped, you mentioned a really cool scene I'd forgotten about. It was a cameo that Ted Cassidy as Lurch did on Batman in 1966 on ABC. It was a pretty cool cameo right after the Addams family was canceled. And Al, I think we have that clip, do we not? I wanted to feature this last week, so we'll correct that right now.
It's sure a shame, Batman. A restaurant with such terrific chow turning out to be a mere front for some criminal scheme.
Look at it this way, Robin. That $100 cover charge is pretty stiff. Penguin's terrific chow is hardly within the budget of the average worker.
Gosh, yes, you're right, Batman. All the needy people in the world, the hungry children.
Good thinking, Robin.
Oh, it's you, Batman. Gave me quite a start.
Yes, citizen, you may return to your harpsichord.
We're on official business.
Oh.
And there go Batman and Robin climbing up the side of the building when really they were upright.
Yeah.
The cameras were tilted.
Of course it was. Yeah.
And they have wires suspending their
on
capes to look like they were airborne.
Yeah, I think there's some photos and stuff on the internet.
In addition to additions and corrections, I want to mention some listener interaction. We received a couple remarks from people that listened to our last
I want to hear all
podcast.
the bad stuff.
No, let's don't play the bad.
Well, we do have some good and we do have some bad. So what do you want to start with, Al? You call it the bad?
The bad.
Okay, the bad. Mr. Michael A-R-E-S Ars? No, Ayers? I don't know.
Ayers, probably.
He says, do these clowns actually know anything?
Well, first of all, I want to point out that we are doing the show in Lucha Libre mask right now, which are the Mexican wrestler mask. Wait. I need to take mine off there. Now, don't I look less clown-like, Chance?
I would say so.
I don't know about that.
You guys take your mask off too,
All right,
because that's what he's talking.
on.
Yeah, see, there you go. See, there you go.
Okay, I got it.
So that's what he's talking about, because obviously he saw an obscure photograph.
We didn't do Facebook Live. How do you know?
No, but there's an obscure photograph out
Clairvoyant.
there that's on Twitter somewhere in the Twitter sphere that shows us doing the podcast last week, and we had clown makeup on.
Well, I'll be damned.
And this week
we got busted.
We have Mexican Lucha Libre mask on, and that's because we had Mexican
for lunch today,
which might not have been the best idea, but that's another story for another pod blast. Did you almost
sometimes
burp?
Tom
Chance, did you almost burp?
Sometimes Tom disappears from the studio.
Well, and we don't even have to say why, because hey,
well, in all seriousness, I've got to prop you guys up and talk about some credentials here. Now, Al Hardy worked for Ted Turner at WTCG, WTBS, CNN for years and years and years. He knows
13
so much.
years.
And he was a projectionist on the side, just for fun. You should see all the things he has and the knowledge in his head about all movies. And that's why I'm glad we're talking about movies today, because thus far we've focused on television. And we're going to talk about music down the line and other areas of pop culture like comic books and magazines and that sort of stuff. But I'm glad we're finally talking about movies today. Now, about Tom Williams' credentials. Did you know, and this is new information, that Tom is a multiple Emmy winner on a national level?
That he is.
He at his house, he showed me his Emmy Awards and these cool cases. Very, very impressive. And now Tom worked also at Turner for years and years, including Turner Classic Movies. And I mentioned this in our last Podblast that he was in on interviewing many, many famous celebrities and movie stars and directors in front of and behind the camera. And he's with the Weather Channel now for many years behind the scenes. And he does a lot of live television. Really, really knowledgeable also about the same things that Al and I know about. Now, I'm the least qualified person in the room.
No,
I'm just a dumb salesperson.
And also Tom and I would still be at Turner if Ted Turner hadn't have sold the damn place.
Well, that's a good
that
point.
merger. I was when the AOL Time Warner deal was one of the worst deals ever.
That's a show in itself.
It is. We won't go there. We love Ted Turner, by the way. He's still around. He just had a milestone birthday.
Yeah.
And they're friends with Bill Tush, by the way. He used to be
on the air.
We
We'll have to get him on the show.
gotta
And
bring
sometime.
Bill
CNN
in.
as a Hollywood reporter, and he's sort of a celebrity in his own right. And I'm really happy to be friends with him. I appreciate you guys introducing me.
He
to
was
him.
in Atlanta with us, and then Bill moved to New York, and then from New York he went to CNN in Hollywood.
And down the road,
Yeah.
hint, hint, we will have guests on this program,
Yeah.
and we're going to start taking calls.
Yes.
We have
At some
many.
point.
We have. This is just phase one of the nostalgic pod blast. So
Yes.
I'll
And-
let Tom take it away with our subject matter. He's got a lot of reading material.
Well,
in front
real
of him.
quick, at some point we'll have Bill Tush in because he's a wealth of information too. Plus, he's funny as crap. Only problem is he'll probably have to be a call, and he won't come to Al's house because Al is.
No, we
really
can go to
seedy
him.
part of
We
town.
can take my
No, I'm just kidding.
recorder over here and just do it there.
Well, that's true, and he would probably appreciate that.
Yeah.
Appreciate that even more.
But we're going to get Bill on at some point.
Yeah. Well, anyway, earlier, like we said, as we started off the show, we started off with a Bela Lugosi clip, and that was from what movie, Al?
Dracula.
Which,
Now,
that
I
was
have a nice 16 millimeter print of that movie.
well,
too.
and that's nice, and it doesn't have vinegar syndrome.
Didn't you
It
watch
does
it
not.
last night, Al?
I
You were
did.
telling me.
I did.
And you shot some video of it.
Yeah.
Film is special, man. I mean, I just love film. And
I
that's how we
love
all
digital
became to be
projection
friends.
too, but film is where it's at. It's just so much fun
Oh,
to
yeah.
hear a
Yeah.
projector running and the film actually going through the projector.
But you've got a cool booth, just like a real movie theater, so you really don't hear the projector that much.
Well, that's true, but you can look back and see it.
And it's so loud. You've got, we've got to shoot a video of your video projection system one day and put it on my YouTube channel. Anyway,
Well, we'll do that. But Bela, actually, did you know that he played Dracula before it was ever filmed
on the stage.
On the stage,
Mhm.
with a wonderful adaptation, which featured Dorothy Peterson as Lucy Seward, and it's 1927. Did you know that? That was a while back. That was
1927.
I'm looking at a picture right now in a really cool magazine I got. It's called Bela Lugosi, Hollywood's Prince of Darkness. I think it's out of print now, but it's called a Classic Monsters Special Edition. And it's a story of classic horror cinema's enduring icon, Bela Lugosi. And it's a wealth of information. It truly is. I'm looking at a lovely stage picture of Bela in theatrical makeup. His face is even more dramatic looking as he bites Lucy Seward's neck. Dun, dun, dun. And what we'll do also, folks, is when we have interesting little tidbits like this, we will, our Chance, more than likely, Chance will be the one to do it because he's a smart guy when it comes to internet stuff and getting stuff posted and getting stuff out there for you to look at. Chance is an amazing human being and getting stuff marketed out there in the right way and to the right people.
Yeah, that is true.
He knows who to call. I don't mean Ghostbusters, but we'll get this picture up. And,
Did you know that Todd Browning did not want Bela Lugosi?
Correct. He did not want Bela Lugosi.
The director of Dracula?
Yeah. He wanted Jimmy Stewart. I'm
I don't
kidding.
think he
I'm
wanted Jimmy
kidding.
Stewart.
No, that was a joke.
hey, Al, I'm still waiting for you to ask me about the positive listener.
Oh, we skipped completely over that, didn't we?
Yeah, we have some
I'm sorry,
positive
We can back
feedback
up and do that.
from Mr. Ryan Settles, spelled R-I-A-N. That's how he spells his first name. He says, "I'm digging the podcast." Excuse me.
You can't even say
Me too.
Podblast.
I'm digging. Well, he called it podcast, but I was just going to correct it. Podblast. Anyway, I'm digging the podcast. As a listener, though, I think your mics are way too hot, but that's the guitar and sound dork coming out. That's being picky. You guys are highly entertaining. You have great chemistry. Cheers. So thank you, Ryan. We appreciate
Thank you,
that.
Ryan. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
All
How did he
right.
know about our chemistry set up here? We have a lab like Grandpa Munster had. And I apologize for some of the lack of Munster tidbits that we had last week. Unfortunately, I was not as prepared as I should have been. I apologize. I just want to say
Well,
sorry.
we never digress that far, do we?
No, we don't.
You want to see something really scary? Watch.
I just want to spit that out. But anyway, so Bela, that was his most famous and most enduring role, and that pretty much opened the door, not only for the horror genre as Universal saw it, but as his role in film. Because sadly, he became pretty much at Ford. It was hard for him to get some of the roles. I'm sure.
But he was the original boogeyman, he said.
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, Al, Chance found this great interview a little while back, and it was filmed on one of Bella's cruises. Back then they didn't fly; they took these lovely little cruise ships, although they weren't called cruise ships. And he found a really nice clip. You want to let's entertain some folks.
One of the great stars of stage and screen, both in Europe and the United States, Bela Lugosi. I've asked Bela Lugosi to be our next guest, one of the great stars of the stage and screen. And Bela, I can make that introduction without any qualms and without any reservations, because I don't know whether you know it or not, but Bela Lugosi, of course, always appears in the vampire pictures, Dracula, and so forth. But among the trade, he is considered one of the finest actors ever to come out of Europe. And that was many years ago, Bela, wasn't it? I think in Hungary?
Yes, in Hungary. But first of all, before I answer any question, Jack, let me tell you it's a very pleasant surprise coming back after 8 months from England to get such a wonderful break to be on the television and you interview me. And
it's our pleasure to have you, believe me, because it's always wonderful meeting you, and we're not just throwing plaudits around here either. Incidentally, I do want to comment on one thing, how wonderfully well you look. You look as though you had a rest over there. You look as though you have complete ease of mind coming back.
Thank you. God is very good to me. I can tell that. Now, you see, I'm 30 years here in America, and 8 months ago, I was called to come to England to revive the American version of Dracula.
Doesn't Dracula ever end for you?
No. Dracula never ends. I don't know whether I shall call it a fortune or a course, but it never ends. I don't know whether I shall brag or complain about it, but Dracula is the only picture in existence in all the world, which since it is revived, since it is made in 31, it is the only picture which is revived in every city in America every year.
Well, some people, Bela, would consider that a curse, and some would consider it a very good omen, because probably as a result of Dracula,
I make a living.
Well, and you were typecast. You've made many other pictures of its type, vampire pictures and mystery pictures and things of that sort. But at the same time, I know you are always yearning, as all actors are, to do a different type of stage vehicle. What would you like to do? The romantic, the...
No, I would prefer to play comedy. You see, after I finished now playing a half a year Dracula on the stage, I was called to make a picture here in London called Vampire Over London. It was a horror part, but the situation was so funny that really it causes laughs. So I really enjoyed it.
Fred Allen wants to do Hamlet. Jack Benny wants to do Hamlet. Bela Lugosi wants to play the
Cyrano de Bergerac.
Cyrano de Bergerac.
Sure.
And you'd probably do very, very well at it. Tell us a little more about the picture that you made in England, Bela. What was the title of it?
Vampire Over London. I played a scary part, and I was the cause to create comedy by scaring all the people around me. And it was rather a clever story, and I think they would laugh at it very much. It's going to sell in America, especially. Yeah.
Was, incidentally, Dracula your favorite role?
After Dracula, my favorite role?
What was your favorite role? Was it Dracula?
In America, in English, or in Hungary at home?
We never consider your Hungarian performances because they've been, so many years ago.
Yes, that's right. Because in Hungary, my favorite parts were all Ferenc Molnár's play, which I created originally, like Lilium and Guardsman.
Did you play in the very first performance of Lilium?
I'll let you know when your mics are on.
30 years ago, and here every year again, we have Lilium playing around the country. I think last year or the year before, or 2 years ago, they made it into a musical on Broadway.
Sure, they did. Now, since I played Dracula, I'm the boogeyman.
Bela, it's so nice to have you back. It's really always a pleasure once again to meet you and say hello to you. But we're running out of time, and I do want to thank you and tell our friends that at this portion of the program, we come to the end of your Ship's Reporter for today. Ship's Reporter is produced on film by the
and
National
that's
Television
your
Guild
Ship's
and directed by
Reporter,
Chick Vincent.
Tom,
Until next
Chance,
time,
and Al. We're going to be, no, we're not the Ship's Reporter.
I
But you know what?
accidentally said something a while ago.
What'd you say?
I said, I'll let you know when your mics are on.
And you didn't.
You didn't hear that, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay, good.
Oh,
Good.
it's the stuff that happens.
Good.
But that role again, as I mentioned before, Universal sadly just could not see how good and capable Lugosi was, and tried to grant him the parts that he both sought
I
and
think I love
deserved.
Bela Lugosi.
And to me, it's just one of what shall we call it? Say Tinseltown's greatest mysteries. But you know what? He played so many other great supporting parts. Like he even shortly after Dracula, he played the famous Igor. Okay, anybody remember that?
No.
Come on, Igor.
I remember Igor. I don't remember Bella playing.
Son of Frankenstein. And,
of course, yeah, I remember
Ghost
that.
of Frankenstein. I think it's Ghost.
He was also in the Phantom Creeps, a serial.
Actually, it was
remember that, Tom?
Actually, it was Son of Frankenstein.
Was it in your grocer's section next to Frankenberry and Blueberry?
Yeah, that's where it was.
Count Chocula.
But Igor was an amazing character. They had the movie premises. He was hung in an earlier episode with these good citizens of the town that he was in, and he always
was hung. That's Milton Berle you're thinking of.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what's that?
I heard stories.
But anyway, and so I'm about Forrest Tucker, but we're not going to go into that. That's a Gilbert Gottfried type of thing. But anyway, his Igor character always his head was cocked to the right or to the maybe it was to the left, and he talked with a really raspy voice, and he was the one that wanted to get Frankenstein raised back from the dead. And so Son of Frankenstein, it was a great movie. He was also in a lot of other movies, Black Friday. I mean, the list goes on and on. It was the 40s was more or less a career revival for Bela. He was, like I said, the Ghost of Frankenstein. He was in so many other things, but he also did personal appearances. Look at this poster, Chance. You'll have to put this poster up.
Well, I can't see the
I'll take a shot of it.
The screen's master of horror in person on the stage, Bela Lugosi. You know, Dracula. It says Bela Dracula in quotes Lugosi. So he appeared back then. They always did little stage shows before the movies started. So he did a whole slew of those, plus horror type performances, kind of like what happens these days at the Spook Show with Shane Morton. He does a little horror live with a cast of characters and scary tactics to get you to come out to the theater to see him in person, as well as others. Now, one of his other more kind of a minor role, he played the gypsy in the famous Lon Chaney Jr. movie, The Wolfman. He played the gypsy. Now, he's in there. As you pointed out, this picture of him I've got here, who does he look like to you?
Rip Taylor.
Rip Taylor. If everyone knows who Rip Taylor is.
And again, I want to announce we are now on Facebook and on Twitter. If you go to if you're on Facebook, and most people are, it's the Nostalgic Podblast page. It's a group, actually.
Yeah,
not a page.
go there and do a like on us.
Do a like, and then we're also on Twitter, the Nostalgic Podblast, at the Nostalgic Podblast. And I want to say what Tom is looking at. He has all these wonderful, colorful books that have movie posters and great photographs. I miss the days where you could go to a shopping mall and there'd be a B. Dalton bookseller and a Walden Books.
Yeah.
I would go there all the time with my allowance. And the first section I'd go to is the performing arts section. You'd find all sorts of great magazines looking at famous monsters of film.
Of course, that's Forrest J. Ackerman's publication.
Oh, it's the best.
Which was the best. And that was started in the 60s. And you look at all the covers. Heaven only knows how many covers Bela graced, and Karloff and Glenn Strange as the Frankenstein monster, who I thought, by the way, listen, Lon Chaney Jr. played Frankenstein. Bela Lugosi played Frankenstein.
But Lon Chaney wasn't very good as Frankenstein.
No, well, see, but then along came Glenn Strange. And if you look at all the famous Monsters of Filmland's book, you'll see it's either going to be Karloff on the cover, as a Frankenstein monster, or Glenn Strange, who was also on the TV show Gunsmoke. He played the bartender, Sam. I think Sam was his name. So he did one of the better, and he was also the Frankenstein monster in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. He was also the Frankenstein monster, and he was also copied by the Don Post. Oh, my mic just went out. The Don Post mask that you could buy as Frankenstein. It was usually the Glenn Strange Frankenstein monster is what you would see as Frankenstein. So anyway, I digress. We were getting into Lon Chaney Jr. As the Wolfman, and that was probably
He was great as a Wolfman.
yeah. I mean, that well, he did the Mummy too, but Karloff was still the best Mummy as well. Isn't that funny? Karloff was the best Frankenstein. Karloff was the best Mummy.
Well, Carlos was just best at everything.
Yeah, he was. But when it got into the House of Frankenstein, House of Dragon, all that sort of stuff, he didn't play the Frankenstein monster anymore because he felt that Frankenstein had kind of he'd gotten everything he could get out of the Frankenstein monster. He felt he didn't want to do it again. And the next time he actually did it, he did a promotional tour for Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. There's pictures of him standing next to the poster, just kind of pointing at the Frankenstein monster, which makes you think, wait a minute, I didn't know he played Frankenstein in that movie, but he didn't. But Universal tapped him to do their advertising for them in some promotional stunts, et cetera, et cetera.
They play that on Svengoolie a lot on MeTV. Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
I like some of the movies they show, but I'm not a big Svengoolie fan.
Wow.
Oh, don't say.
Sorry, I'm not either.
I'm trying to connect with MeTV. Well, he just had a big anniversary, man.
Al loves Svengoolie.
I love Svengoolie.
Okay, there you go.
He's great.
Attitude adjustment.
And the chicken thing is really funny. Every time he does it. Oh, he does it all the time.
Hey, getting back to Bela Lugosi, just want to mention that he passed away way back on August 16th, 1956 in Los Angeles, California.
Yeah, and unfortunately, he had a little bit of
substance abuse,
a drug
like
issue.
in Ed Wood. You ever see the movie Ed Wood?
I love that movie.
Yeah, great movie.
By Tim Burton, and one of my favorite actors who passed away not too long ago, Martin Landau, played Bela Lugosi. Pull the string, pull the string. And I met Martin, by the way. My favorite word on the show is digress, because I digress all the damn time, but I'm going to digress again here. I met him on the set of a movie, the Anna Nicole Smith story, and he was playing Marshall, the old man in real life that married Anna Nicole. Some say she was a gold digger or whatever. Anyway, he was so nice, and I was on set just doing a little bit, and he walked in for a costume fitting, and I'm sitting in the hallway, just me. The door opens up, and
wow,
this light from outside, just shines on him, and he walks in, and I look at him, I go, Commander Koenig, because he played the commander on Space 1999, and that's one of my favorite cult shows.
Great.
Anyway, and he just smiled at me, and we had lunch together, and I had photos with him. We talked, and I'm like, I have all those episodes on 16mm film. He's like, 16mm film, they have them on Blu-ray now and DVD. I'm like, oh yeah, I have that too. I'm such a nerd. I have it in all different formats. Anyway, please continue.
That's fantastic. Now, see, here's a funny thing. In addition to that, when he was doing Mission Impossible, we're talking about Martin Landau briefly. He sent me an autographed picture. And to this day, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but to this day, if you look at my signature, I do my dots. If I type in Williams, the eyes supposed to have a dot above them. Well, I do a circle. I got that from him.
That's great.
Because
he was a cartoonist,
Yeah,
Did you know that?
Yeah, he was. And so was Fred Gwynn.
Mm-hmm.
Fred Gwynn, back to the Munsters. He was an amazing cartoonist, which we didn't even touch on.
Did you know that Tom is a pretty good cartoonist?
Yeah,
I did not know that.
You used to see some of the stuff he's drawn. Yeah,
well, that got me into the business.
That's cool.
He's really good.
Yeah,
I do some pen and ink, but I'm not very good.
Yeah,
I do.
well, that's okay. But you know what? It's one of those things in life. Whether you're a musician, artist, or singer, even you don't use it, you lose it. And I don't draw like I used to, so I cannot draw like I used to. But that being the case, the Martin Landau and Fred Gwynn's, but Gwynn was an amazing storyteller. He wrote a bunch of children's books, which were very, very, very popular. This was in and around the time of before Pet Sematary started for him, which kind of brought him back to kind of a screen.
Sure did. We
revival.
talked about that in our last Podblast.
Yeah. But we didn't, that's,
and
you know what, we need to, at some point, we'll revisit the Munsters and maybe the Addams Family because, in a little bit more depth. Sorry, guys, we just ran out of time. But
and better clips.
Yeah, and better clips. There's so many tidbits that we did leave out, and we apologize for all you fans.
Well, I'm really looking forward to the new Addams Family movie, the animated one. It looks really good.
Which is based on the Charles Addams cartoon strips, which I think was a very good idea for
the
them
New
to
Yorker
do.
magazine.
Yes. Correct. Anyway, back to Lon Chaney Jr. as a Wolfman, because he like Bela, was typecast after that. It was hard for him to get some roles. Now, he was a Universal player. He played mostly, a bunch of stuff for Universal. He did the Inner Sanctum movies, and they were very, very good too. They weren't great, but they were B movies or B minus movies, if you want to call them, almost C. But they were entertaining because of a radio show back then called Inner Sanctum. So they played off of that title, obviously, and it had kind of a spooky beginning. It showed a guy's face in the crystal ball. It was actually kind of cool. It came off like it was a horror type movie, but it really wasn't. It's more of a suspenseful thriller type of scenario for Lon Chaney Jr. But he was very much in his father's shoes. He was actually, when Lon Chaney Jr. was born, he was born dead.
What?
Yes, he was born dead. Yeah.
Chance has got to sneeze. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sneeze.
I'm going to suppress it.
Well,
go ahead, sneeze. Don't do that.
Chance is going to suppress.
I suppress.
See, Chance, when you suppress a sneeze, it's not. But he was not breathing when he was born, and so what his father did, because back then, families sometimes you didn't go to the hospital to be born, I guess. So that's what happened in this case, is what I can gather, because Lon Chaney Sr., who was obviously something just cut off in this room. I don't know what it was. Lon Chaney Sr. grabbed him, ran out of the house he was born in, and broke a hole in the ice in a nearby lake. Okay. And dunked him time after time until it revived him. So that's what Lon Chaney Jr. would tell. He had a little stage show that he would go around, and he did one at the municipal auditorium here in Oklahoma, not here in Oklahoma City. We're not in Oklahoma City, for crying out loud. But he did a stage show, and he was telling, recanting his youth and his childhood. But that's just fascinating. He was born dead. I mean, wow! If his father had not revived him, we would have never had the Wolfman, or at least some other type of incarnation of the Wolfman.
Do you know who else played the Wolfman in a movie?
Quite a few people. But go ahead.
Michael Landon.
Well, that
no,
was
in a teenage werewolf.
That was a teenage werewolf.
But still, he was a werewolf.
Yeah.
1957.
Yeah.
Yep, I've got that.
And it was good. I mean, that was before Bonanza, and
correct, right before.
Yeah. And it was very good. I don't know.
Put him on the map.
I don't know what he really thought of that role. I never really read anything about it.
I saw an interview with him, and it was on the Tonight Show, and they played a clip and talked about it, and he spoke favorably of it. I don't memorize it enough to quote it, but he was happy about it, at least in the interview.
I think it was black and white, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
yeah,
black and white film.
Yeah, but Lon Chaney Jr.'s father was his teacher. He taught him a lot of things. And the thing about Lon Chaney Jr., if you watch him in any of his roles, watch his facial expressions, and that's important. Remember what I just said. Watch his facial expressions, because he was so much more expressive. And the reason being is because Lon Chaney Sr.'s parents were both deaf mutes. And
I read about that.
And that's how, if you think about Lon Chaney Sr., because they were silent movies, look at the visual expressions on all the silent actors' faces, how exaggerated they were. Well, Chaney Sr. was amazing at that. And obviously that crept down into Chaney Jr.'s training as an actor.
You know, one of the worst Wolfmans on television, I'll tell you. Absolutely awful. It was in the episode of a show called Lost in Space.
Oh,
it was a black and white episode, and a guy who worked for Irwin Allen a lot named Dawson Palmer played the Wolfman. It just, the costume, it wasn't really his performance. The costume was just terrible. It looked like they patched together a bear suit, and they had kind of a patchwork mask. Anyway.
But wasn't that the Irwin Allen credo? Get it done as cheap as you can.
And use a lot of stock footage.
And use the same sets over and over, maybe shoot them at different angles or whatever the case may be. And that's why
on the cheap.
That's why the Robinsons outfits never changed.
Well, they changed.
No, I know they
changed
did
3 times.
Yeah, I know they did, but that still wasn't much.
They must have had some BO.
They must have had some BO. Now Chaney went on to do over 467 movies. Now, that's a lot of movies. 467.
Damn, boy.
But his favorite role was playing Lenny in Of Mice and Men. That was his favorite one. Of course, he earned a Critics Award for his creation of that role because he was a mentally disabled psychopathic killer.
Wow. Well, look up the Space Croppers Lost in Space, because also in that is Mercedes McCambridge, who was the voice of the Exorcist, the possessed girl, Linda Blair.
Yeah.
And she plays it's just a very horrible episode, but Sherry Jackson's in it, who was very, very sexy. Is kind of a farm girl, a space farm girl. You'll know her. She was in a lot of things, including a sensuous Star Trek with Ted Cassidy Lurch called What Are Little Girls Made Of, written by Robert Bloch, who wrote Psycho, the Hitchcock classic.
Yeah, Robert Bloch. I know that name. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff.
He did. He was a great writer, very prolific. He wrote a good Star Trek episode, Wolf in the Fold, about Jack the Ripper. They explained he was a space entity that would go from planet to planet, possessing people. Anyway, Robert Bloch wrote that story.
I need to read that. Al, what was your favorite Lon Chaney role? Was it Mummy? Was it Wolfman? Was it? He also played Dracula.
It would have to be the Wolfman.
Oh, he also played Frankenstein.
That's true. Well, speaking of Frankenstein, or however you want to call it, I think back to Mel Brooks. But let's move to the Frankenstein movie with Karloff.
But I hadn't finished talking about Lon Chaney Jr., but that's okay. We can keep going. We got to keep going anyway. You're right. No, you're right. But just one last thing. Just one last thing. I mean, out of all the roles Lon Chaney Jr. did, the Wolfman was his favorite role because it could evoke sympathy, it could invoke horror, and the kids loved it because the makeup. Just look at the Jack Pierce makeup on Chaney. I'm sorry. I mean, I have not seen too many better Wolfmans, with the exception of Oliver Reed as Werewolf of London, and hope I got that name right.
Yeah, American Werewolf in London.
No, not American Werewolf. No, Werewolf of London, which was a 1940s Universal.
Well, American Werewolf in London was actually a very good movie.
Yeah, it was, and really gory.
Yes,
it was very gory.
I have a poster of it downstairs. You'll see.
I love that movie. And another one I want to mention real quick while we're talking about Wolfmen is Wolfen. I really like that movie a lot too.
Wolfen, yeah.
Wolfen and Dee Wallace. I'll never forget it. She's playing an anchor woman who transforms.
When did this movie come out? I don't remember.
In the 80s, like 81. Oh, God. But she transforms live on the air as playing like playing a anchor person. And she transforms into a wolf, and her eyes she's just a great underrated actress. She was best known for E.T. as the mom and E.T. the extraterrestrial. Yeah. But look up Wolfen. Good movie. Aha. And it's very gory.
You know what I like to see in movies? Nazis getting killed. But anyway,
me too.
I'm sorry. I really digressed.
Tarantino did it best.
I know he sure did. Man.
One thing about the Universal movies I always liked was their logos. You know that?
Sure. Why don't you play for it?
That was the airplane. That's what they call the glass globe logo.
Well, that wasn't exactly.
You know what? I'm sorry, guys. It's The Howling. Not Wolfen was something with. Never mind. That's another movie. The Howling is the one with D. Stone that transforms into a wolf live on TV while she's delivering the news. Anyway, The Howling. Check it out.
We
1981.
We should have played the. We should have played the. What we played a little while ago. What was it? The correction roundup, whatever the hell we call it.
Correction corner.
I even forgot what it was called.
The correction corner. Yeah.
Oh, mercy. I'm sorry. So we're going to dip into Frankenstein. And the most famous Frankenstein of all was Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Al, do you know when that was written?
A long time ago.
We're talking 1800s, buddy.
Yeah.
1800s. Mary Shelley
the worst Frankenstein movie. The absolutely
there's so many.
Well, the worst one was with Robert De Niro.
Oh yeah,
that was a horrible movie.
And our friend Jim Gossett does a funny comedy bit, an impression of Robert De Niro. I won't do it because he's so talented.
Sure.
He's a national impressionist that we like, and he does a funny impression of Robert De Niro as Frankenstein.
Oh, we should get him on the show too.
Yeah, maybe we'll call him if we're lucky.
We can
well, he won't call in today because he doesn't know our number.
No.
But Karloff was the most famous Frankenstein monster of them all because he's the one that started it. Well, I lied. I'm sorry. Thomas Edison had Frankenstein before Universal did. Did you ever see that particular movie?
I did not.
It's a silent movie.
That's why I didn't see it.
Kinetoscope edition, and it's been recent. It was recently restored, probably about a year or two ago, and in all of its glory. And the monster is actually pretty cool looking. He's very hysterical looking. His eyes are wild, and we'll post a picture of that monster. Chance will post it, I should say, and you'll get
on
to
our
see
Facebook page.
On a Facebook page, you'll get to see what he looks like. But that was actually an interesting addition. It wasn't obviously it wasn't as good as the Karloff version, but it was still interesting nevertheless. It was the first Frankenstein on film that
a silent. I've got to check it out.
It was a silent.
I don't mean to sound like a snob. Like I hate when kids today say, "Oh, it's in black and white. I'm not going to watch it." Now I sound like that about silent. Oh, it's silent. I don't want to see it. That's very closed-minded. So I will check it out. Hey, help me out, Tom. What's that monster? I can't pronounce it.
Nosferatu.
Yeah, scary. Now I've seen that. That's
a great
freaks
movie.
Me out, man.
The silent one and the remake that was made by Warner Herzog, I think, something like that, in the 80s. I have it on DVD.
Yes, exactly.
I've not seen the remake. I want to check it out.
I've got it. You want to watch it today?
Is it on film? It's a DVD.
It's on DVD.
Yeah, that's fine. You gonna make some popcorn today, Al?
It's creepy. It's really creepy.
Will you make some popcorn today? In your popcorn, he's got a real movie theater popcorn maker. It's awesome.
I'm getting low. I got to order some more. I got six.
So that's a negative.
I got 6 packs left.
That's negative. Okay.
So anyway, Frankenstein celebrated its 200th anniversary. Now, I'm referring to not the movie so much as but the book.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Correct. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And
was that movie good? Was that the one with Robert De Niro? Mary
Shelley wrote the story.
I know that. I'm saying there was a movie in the 90s called Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, right?
It wasn't good.
No, it sucks.
It was terrible.
It wasn't great. I mean, Christopher Lee even played the Frankenstein.
What about the Brad Pitt Dracula? Getting back to, I know we're all over the place here. We already moved on from Bella.
Well, we're trying to get to Frankenstein, but yeah, it was okay. It was watchable. Al, didn't you have a print of that at one time?
I did.
Yeah, actually, it was enjoyable in Al's basement on his 35mm.
I saw it one time. I don't remember. I was pretty drunk when I saw it, so
which is pretty much all the time, isn't it? The only time he's sober is on Sundays.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Oh wait, I digress. There's stuff in the freezer right now, but Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was the modern Prometheus, as it was called back then, and it was pretty. If you think about it, it was very graphic for a woman to have written such a novel back then. It was seen with much oh my gosh, a woman wrote that, and it was very much shallow compensation because her husband died in a boating accident right when that book was reaching its zenith for her. So it was kind of well, that's great, but
sounds like foul play to me.
I don't think it was foul play, but in the 1836, I think was it 1836 edition, she's told the story about the novel's creation for the first time, which she hadn't really talked about it much before then. But anyway, we're here to talk about what happened after that with Frankenstein going to the movies, as it were. Which was Karloff, which was a master. I'm looking at a picture right now. It's just a studio still, and it's just
that's my favorite Frankenstein.
Look at that picture. That's just an amazing picture of Frankenstein. And as a side, does it
say what year that picture's from? I'm going to put it on our Facebook.
We need to put this on our Facebook page.
1931.
Wow.
And it was the movie that started it all, is what it was. And we have a wonderful. Well, before I get to that, let me say one more quick thing. Recently, there was a collector. I won't name him, but there was a collector who obviously he's got a lot of money. He collects a lot of the Universal original 1-sheet posters, 2-sheet posters, etc. And the rarest Frankenstein poster of them all was the never seen 6-sheet poster.
6 sheets.
6-sheet.
Well, 6 sheets were made to go outdoors. They're like billboard posters, the really big ones.
Correct. And there was a guy who wrote him, because he was well known in the rounds of people who collect these type of things from the horror movies, and wrote him, said, "Hey, I've got something that looks kind of interesting." And this guy who collects the posters, he had an original Al. What was the? Oh, I'm sorry, it escapes my memory banks. Al, what was the little publications they sent around to the theaters showing them what the promotional materials was called? What's that called? Again?
Press kits.
Press kits. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. He had an original press kit from Frankenstein the movie, which is really rare. It wasn't a copy; it was the original one. And he had seen almost every poster with the exception of the 6-sheet. He'd never seen it. Well, this guy calls him, and he bid at some state auction. And there was a suitcase he won. Inside that suitcase was a bunch of folded posters. Guess what the heck it was?
What?
You want to know?
That 6-sheet poster?
You gave it away. Al, you took away my thunder. Well, anyway, there was a 6-sheet poster. Now, he didn't realize it was a 6-sheet. The guy sent him a picture of a piece of it. And he started thinking, oh, wait a minute. That's what this is. So sure enough, he wheeled and dealed, I guess, and got that poster out of him, and it's now hanging in his office, and it's absolutely amazing. That story was on Facebook here a couple weeks back.
And it's worth a lot of money.
It's worth a ton of money because
6 figures.
More than because the according to that article, the most expensive poster of the Mummy, Carl Lamel's The Mummy, had sold for almost $1 million. I believe it's what I don't know the exact figure off the top of my head. Sorry, folks, but I'm sure someone knows it. And they're screaming it right now at the podcast. You idiot! It's but
don't you know nothing?
Don't you know nothing?
Oxymorons.
But anyway, the guy did not reveal what he bought it for. But anyway, it was the most rare poster, and it's a very cool poster because it's Karloff standing in the room with Dr. Frankenstein's wife, and she's standing across from him. And that scene that did appear in the movie, but it's a great illustration.
And guys, Al, you and I off air were talking about how MeTV airs some of the Universal monster movies.
Yes.
But the prints they use add music, and the originals did not have any music at all.
We're recording on a Sunday, but yesterday, Saturday night, on Spenguli, they ran Dracula.
Right, it's part of their sci-fi Saturday night.
But it was a print that Universal released back for a DVD release, but they added music to it.
Just nondescript
music, but the original
scene.
movie had no music in it like that.
And I didn't know that. It's good to know. And it's not MeTV's fault. That's
No, that's just the print that Universal gave to them. But but I have it on 16 millimeter, which is the original.
And it has a laugh track, right?
That means your print's going to...
Tom's always a funny guy.
So your print's going to be worth even more money if all the mass-produced releases thereafter on DVD
it's a
and
great
Blu-ray
print.
have that music and yours is the original. Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
You're sitting on... There must be in this house $1 billion. If you count up all the
that.
movie posters...
Let me give you Al's address.
No. I mean, equipment. I mean, it's very, very... It's like a little museum in here. Very impressive.
I've always been a collector of just about everything.
Yeah.
Ain't that the truth? There's a drink cup in here. It's 20 years old. Next year will mark the 50th anniversary. 50th anniversary of Karloff's passing. Wow. I remember when he passed. I remember it wasn't headline, but it was on the front page of the newspaper. It was, in the second half of the front.
It wasn't
page. like
when Elvis Presley died.
No, it was not. But it was still.
77.
But it was still big news.
One of the funniest movies that Karloff made.
Just call him Boris.
It was called Comedy of Terrors with Peter Lorre and
Vincent Price.
It's a great little movie. You ever see it?
No.
It's called Comedy of Terrors. It's got Vincent Price is in it.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about Vincent Price, but Vincent Price is in it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Peter Lorre. What a great character actor.
Yeah.
He's up there at Edward G. Robinson.
Yeah.
But Frankenstein marked so many milestones because you got to remember the moral issues of Frankenstein, the monster. It's man creating a man, not God.
That's sacrilege.
Man. Yeah, exactly. So it caused a lot of issues
To
back
some.
then. Yeah, and not to mention what Universal did was brilliant. They would not they did their best not to pre-release too many pictures of what the monster looked like, and it actually scared a lot of people when it ran in the theaters back then.
That was smart for them to have that.
It was very smart.
Shock factor,
because
not giving it like
exactly
Spielberg did with E.T. You never saw what the extraterrestrial looked like
Right.
until the movie was released in the press. And anyway,
exactly.
kept it a secret.
I remember
Smart marketing.
Yeah, I remember one of the posters or something, or maybe it was a theatrical trailer I saw, had a question mark, the monster. It wouldn't even tell you who played the monster. If you look in the original credits, I believe it says question mark on the original Frankenstein movie. It does say that, if I'm not mistaken. I think they later redid that for TV releases, et cetera, et cetera.
You are correct.
But it was pretty mysterious, and then they had to follow it up. We can sit and talk about Frankenstein for a long time. I mean, just the equipment alone, and the shots that they used in that movie was absolutely incredible. The miniatures they used, the role that Marty Feldman played in it was wonderful. Oh, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I just got that confused on Young Frankenstein, didn't I?
Yeah. Hey, would you say, I'm assuming here, is this a correct assumption to say Boris Karloff is the most successful of the classic monster
Absolutely.
actors?
Undoubtedly.
He went on to Thriller, for a couple of
Undoubtedly,
years.
because
An anthology horror series
you're absolutely
in black
right.
and white.
Even though he
like
did
Outer Limits, before Outer Limits.
Well, exactly. But even though he did a ton of B movies after that, but he also did a lot of really good films after that were not Frankenstein related.
I wish he had done a Twilight Zone for Rod Serling. I guess
that
would have
been
conflicted with
Thriller.
Thriller.
It probably would have, but that would have been awesome.
And of course, Bella was gone before Twilight Zone started in '59, so that couldn't happen. It probably would have had he been alive.
That would have been very cool.
That was one of Rod Serling's inspirations.
Yeah,
But one of the most famous lines from Frankenstein.
What was that?
I know it, but I want to give it away.
Thunder?
It's coming. Listen.
You're gonna make us wait, aren't you?
It's moving. It's alive. It's alive. It's moving. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, in the name of God. Now I know what it feels like to be God.
See, now that's the line.
Controversial line.
That got him in trouble. As a matter of fact, I would be willing to bet the farm. I didn't watch TV in the 50s, obviously, but when the Universal movies hit the TV syndication stuff, I'd be willing to bet you there was more than one TV station that cut that out.
Wow.
I mean, seriously. I mean,
They cut the scene out where Frankenstein throws the girl in the lake.
But I bet that was another part that they edited out, and more than you probably know. Although it may not be well advertised out there, so to speak.
Now, you know how the first time I heard that line, this is a generational difference thing, was in a 1985 John Hughes comedy, Weird Science, and Oingo Boingo. And that was a Universal movie, by the way, Weird Science. It was a comedy. Yeah. But Oingo Boingo did like the main title song, and it was a single.
Oingo
and
Boingo.
I had the dance mix, and they sampled "It's Alive! Alive!"
Yeah, exactly.
in the song. And that's the first time I'd heard the line before I'd seen the original.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Really? So you didn't know what it was from, did you?
I knew the reference, but I'd never seen it in the film. I have since, of course.
Of course. But the cool thing about it was, even back then, and we're talking 31, they knew, oh, wait a minute, this movie's doing gangbusters. Let's do a sequel. And they did. And they followed it up with none other than Bride of Frankenstein. It was like a monster mating game. It was like a monster mating game. And the cool part about that is, well, the sad part about that is, you never saw the very lovely Elsa Lancasters. Did I say it right? Lanchesters. Sorry, I can't say her name. I'm sorry, I'm tongue twisted. You never saw her character until the very end of the daggone movie. And then she was gone. It's kind of like you wanted more.
They should have brought her back.
Oh, they should have. Yeah, I'm quite amazed they didn't. Well, you know what? If they could bring wait a minute.
Was it a success at the box office though?
Yes, it was.
Then that's even stupider. They didn't bring her back.
But if they can bring Frankenstein back, why didn't they bring her back? They could have brought her back. She could have been the nagging housewife or something, you know?
Yeah.
What do you think, Al? Don't you think they should have brought Elsa back as the bride? I mean, she was on the screen so little, but
she was great though.
Yeah, but made such a lasting impression because I you know, a lot of people see that face, go, "Oh yeah, that's the Bride of Frankenstein."
Frankenstein's just such a part of pop culture. I mean, look at the cartoons, look at Frankenberry cereal. I mean, there's all sorts of aspects in society.
Remember a TV series, it was a cartoon series I have on DVD called The Groovy Ghoulies?
Yeah, I remember that.
Had all the
was it a Saturday morning cartoon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Had Frankenstein, Dracula, and all that stuff.
But
the Groovy Ghoulies.
But I loved her talking role. It was basically it consisted of shrieks and hisses at the monster.
Right. Yeah.
And because the monster was almost, he was going, oh, he was smiling and everything, and kind of rubbing her hand, and she.
Well, he probably had an erection.
Oh, see, he shouldn't have said that. Now we're going to get cards and letters.
No.
But he's stroking her hand, hoping that she would really like him and dig him. But man, she hated him. So not to give away the plot of the movie, but to me, it was much better than Frankenstein.
At least Mel Brooks picked up on it with Madeline
Kahn,
playing the Bride of Frankenstein. And
yeah, he did.
I love that.
That was great.
That's a great movie.
That was great.
Man.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great movie.
He died. Peter Boyle, right?
Yeah, Peter Boyle. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
and the funny part about that is, Everybody Loves Raymond. He was the father of Ray Romano in that show, and they did a Halloween. I think they did more than one Halloween show, but
I didn't watch that because I don't find Ray funny. But
anyway, but anyway, they did. And by the way, Brad.
Was it a tribute? I'm sorry.
Well, no, it wasn't a tribute. No, but they do a Halloween show.
I like Brad Garrett.
Yeah, but Brad does a great Herman Munster.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress.
And a great Jackie Gleason.
Yes,
we
absolutely,
digress.
absolutely.
Played Jackie once.
And did you give me a DVD or that? Anyway,
I did.
Anyway,
yeah.
To make a long story short,
the Jackie, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
I gave you a DVD. 2002.
Yeah, exactly. But getting back to what I was saying, on that show they did Halloween characters, and I was really thinking that Boyle was going to come through the door as young Frankenstein or Frankenstein.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, but they didn't do it, so there must have been some serious copyright issues.
Universal. That
or
must
something.
I know. You know what? It was a CBS show, the Ray Romano show.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It's what was the name of that show?
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yeah.
It had to have been. Like
it
CBS
had
versus Universal. It's copyright.
But it was no brainer.
BS.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it, and it never happened.
Yeah.
It was very much a disappointment because
missed opportunity.
Well, I certainly think it was a missed opportunity because it could have been a cross promotion, all this sort of stuff. But Dr. Pretorius in The Bride of Frankenstein, look him up. I will put a picture of him as a great painting of him that somebody, a current artist, has done of him. And it's just amazing, the detail. What a sinister looking guy. I mean, he was a great character actor. And he was wonderful because he lured the monster Karloff into, make you a wife. Let's do this. And he basically befriended the Karloff Frankenstein. And then, of course, at the end of the movie, he felt he had been betrayed. And so he killed everybody, but let Frankenstein go.
Kill everybody.
So anyway, spoiler alert. Sorry, guys.
Aren't you all going to ask me what my favorite monster is? I guess not.
No,
I'll
because
just tell you.
we're afraid it might be something from Lost in Space.
No.
Go ahead.
No, it's a classic movie monster. I like The Invisible Man.
I've
always liked
Claude
that
Rains,
character.
yeah.
'Cause
Claude
who wouldn't like
Rains.
to have that ability to be invisible? And I loved the year 2000. In the year 2000, Conan O'Brien reference.
Of course it is.
Well,
They made a movie called Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon, and we watched that recently, Al.
That's just a bizarre movie.
I
That's
love
a
that
bizarre
movie. It has
movie.
dark comedy.
Which one?
Hollow Man.
Did you ever
It
see
was
it?
Oh, yeah,
Invisible Man
yeah.
with
That was
Kevin
good.
Bacon.
That was
I
good.
like that
That
movie.
was very good.
It had
Yeah.
sex, comedy, of course.
Even
gore.
Chevy Chase did a movie.
It was
Invisible
really well done, and they made a terrible sequel. But the original Hollow Man, check it out. And it was directed by the director who did RoboCop, and he's kind of a perv. He's this. I do not condone this, okay? But this director who did RoboCop and several other movies, like Showgirls, he always has a damn rape scene in his movie, and he did in Hollow Man as well.
No reason for that.
I know he's Dutch. Anyway,
Well, before we get too far, we have an interview with Karloff, you know.
Well, so yeah, I was going to say before we jump into Invisible Man, which are so many classic. Again, just we're talking Universal here, folks. We could do 5 shows on horror.
Oh, let's not
classic. No, we're not. Classic.
I always
horror
liked the voice of Claude Rains. He was just
Yeah,
like
Claude-
he had
he-
that
Yeah.
great voice.
But
Yeah.
he had to go to an acting school in New York when he came to New York to get rid of the heavy Cockney accent that he had.
Oh.
Yeah, he really did. Anyway, so we got a great Karloff. And see, now you got me saying the wrong word. Karloff clip that I found on YouTube.
Shall we check
it's
it
a
out?
great little interview. Listen,
I
give it a
was
listen.
playing in a film at Universal, and James Whale was the director of Frankenstein, and he saw me in the makeup, rather in the lunchroom, and I had my best makeup on, straight makeup, and what I thought was my best suit. I was playing a different kind of part. And he invited me to his table to have a cup of coffee and said he would like to make a test of me for the monster. And I thought, well, that doesn't speak very well of my nice straight makeup and my good suit. However, I was delighted. And they had a fine makeup man at the studio, a man named Jack Pierce. And he experimented and worked on the makeup for 2 or 3 weeks, really, before he said, now we are ready, you can photograph it.
Mm-hmm.
And they liked the makeup, the test, and I got the part, and that's how it started.
How did you make out with Frankenstein? Did you like the person you had to interpret?
Oh yes, it was a great challenge, and tremendously interesting, because here was a completely helpless, inarticulate, lumbering, helpless creature in a strange and hostile world without speech, and he had to communicate to people, and it was a challenge to find some way to do it.
How did people react to Frankenstein?
Well, the film itself, of course, was an enormous success, and they have made, all told, this is Universal, who sort of first made the Frankenstein. They've made, all told, I suppose, at least a dozen of them. But I only played the monster in the first 3, because I felt there wasn't much left to do in the character. It was getting less and less and less.
A monster series could be of an appeal to the public. Do you explain the reason of the success of the series?
Yes, I think I can. We know that fashions in plays and in films and in stories change. They go in cycles, then they die out, then they come back again. But this kind of story, not of necessity the monster, but this kind of story seems to go on forever. And I've often wondered if the real reason isn't that it's the oldest kind of story in the world, really, that it has its roots very deep in the legends and the fairy tales and the folklore of every race in the world, and has a universal appeal. And I think that's why they go on, in one form or another.
Now, they go on without you because you only made the first 3. Don't you regret the monster tales?
No, not really. The monster turned out to be the best friend I ever had. He changed the whole course of my life. I was an obscure and struggling, unknown actor. Then all of a sudden I get this marvelous opportunity handed to me with all the help and assistance that I could ask for. And my career, my work hasn't stopped since. 32 years later, you are asking me about it. Now, who could ask for anything better than that?
All right, that was the fantastically, wonderfully great Boris Karloff. He was so nice and wonderful to his fans. He wouldn't hesitate to stop and say hi and be nice to the kids, because you got to remember, Universal had released all the old classic horror films, and he was basically introduced to a whole new set of audience with the youngsters in the 60s, late 50s and 60s. I mean, that's how I found out about Frankenstein, the Frankenstein monster, of course. But by the time those films hit the local TV syndicators, he was already, pretty old at that point. But that got him some pretty cool gigs. Like I said earlier in the Podblast, notice I said Podblast?
You got it right.
Yeah. He was on several wonderful little shows. He was on Route 66. He reprised the role as Frankenstein, as he said he would never do, but he did it. Because
Route 66.
Yeah, Route 66
with Martin Milner.
Yep.
And, oh
Yep.
my God!
It was like I
What
said
do you mean
earlier.
He reprised it.
He reprised his role as Frankenstein on the show.
I didn't even think it was a fantasy show. I saw one with a mermaid with Diane Baker. We talked about that. Was
he
cool,
was
but-
he was on.
So they would go into fantasy on that show.
Well, it wasn't fantasy. Basically, it was kind of I don't remember the exact plot of that particular show, but I can tell you, Lon Chaney Jr. was on the show, and they were and Karloff
not
started
playing themselves, playing their
playing
characters.
themselves.
Now,
Playing-
now,
wait,
now,
wait,
now,
wait.
now it makes
Wait,
sense.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I
playing
misunderstood
themselves.
completely. I
Carl-
thought you were saying they're
yeah.
playing their characters.
Karloff
Okay.
is in London, England, and he calls Cheney and talking about some type of meeting reunion. I'm sorry, I don't recall the exact show. I wasn't even going to bring it up, but I bring it up only historically because it was the last time he actually portrayed Frankenstein on any type of a screen, as far as in makeup. And to me, it never looked that good. I mean, it wasn't Jack Pierce, like I said earlier. And of course, Lon Chaney Jr. was Wolfman, and Peter Lorre was just a creepy guy.
Were these guys ever in color though in their heyday, in makeup, or was it all black and white?
No,
on film?
there was some actual color footage of Karloff. There's a home movie. Some people are calling
that's
it
cool, like
a-
Super 8. Like,
yes, some people are
on the
well, 60 millimeter, but
Right,
some people were calling it a test for color. They were originally going to shoot I believe it was Son of Frankenstein in color, but they decided against it.
God, you're making me think of a
yeah.
story. Can I just tell something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, it's about the color process. The Star Trek pilot. This is going to another quick subject. There was a green lady and a green Orion slave girl played by Susan Oliver. The lab kept correcting the green and coloring it flesh. And Gene Roddenberry said, "What the hell's going on here?" The lab thought it was a mistake.
Yeah.
And so the green girl kept getting tinted flesh colored. So anyway, they had to do several times until they got it
crazy.
right. Anyway,
That's crazy.
that
but
part
see,
of the back in the day when black and white was transitioning to color, you had hiccups like that.
Yes,
But
you
would
did.
the Universal horror movies have the same effect in color as they do in black and white?
No, probably not. But you know what? I at the same time, I'm surprised with all the colorization that went on. I'm still kind of surprised that no one ever colorized Frankenstein. I don't recall ever seeing. Now, yes, I've seen colorized stills, as we all have, and he's all different shades of green and blue.
Well, Turner, right? Turner never owned Universal's library. He had, I know this.
MGM.
He had
Thank you,
MGM.
MGM, and that was it.
That was it.
No,
Still,
well,
that was King's
RKO.
library.
RKO.
RKO, right?
RKO pictures.
And that would be King Kong.
Well, King Kong was
Mighty
RKO.
Joe Young.
Yeah, well, he
We didn't talk
colorized.
about Mighty Joe.
Well, he
get into
colorized
the
King
apes.
Kong. He colorized King Kong. Turner colorized
Yeah,
King Kong.
because he had the rights.
But it didn't
right.
look good back then.
No, no,
It really didn't.
No, the process now that was incredible, like with the DVDs of, like, say, I Dream of Jeannie and
Yeah,
Bewitched.
well,
They've colorized their black and white
Yes.
seasons.
Well,
It looks great. The
well-
Gilligan's Island sucked though. Now Turner colorized Gilligan's Island.
Well, they
season
colorized
one.
Bewitched too. The first season of
It looks
Bewitched.
good though.
Well, Zach Smothers.
From 2000, it says in the credits 2000. Like
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, Zach Smothers of Pop Culture out in L.A. He did all the colorization for.
people hate colors. We're polarizing people right now. Of
I
course,
know, but
you know what I say?
It's
Can
come
I-
so long.
Why
come
don't you
so far,
turn your
rather.
color settings down? If you've got why not buy the colorized version, and then if you have an issue with it, adjust your TV set to turn the color off, and there's black and white.
You know
But I
what,
guess
Turner-
you would kind of change it though when you colorize it, like, and you watch it in black and white.
Right.
Wouldn't it still look a little different than? You know what I'm
would.
trying to
It would-
say?
It would look
change.
soft.
Yeah,
It would
there you
look soft.
You know what Turner also colorized? It looked great.
What?
The black and white Popeyes.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's true. The cartoons.
The cartoons
you
look
can
really
get
good.
away.
Yeah.
The cartoons you can get away with a lot of stuff, and you're right. The Popeye color cartoons look amazing. They really did, and they still do. But I digress. To get back to colorization, Zach Smothers from Pop Culture, who's on Facebook, look him up. Pop Culture. He's actually
Now, how would you spell that so I can look it up? Do you know?
Just type in what's POP
Thank you.
color. Ture, Ture, but you can also look up Zach Smothers. But he's colorized some I Love Lucy's, some clips. He's also colorized a bunch of Munster clips. They look amazing.
I've seen those. Those look great. The Munster stuff.
Like he's
I
doing
mean,
it these days. Like
yes,
what,
he's doing-
year around was he doing
He
this?
just
process?
did it like the last couple of years.
See, with technology these days,
He's done.
it looks really
he's
good.
done an amazing job. Now Zach also did the current. Now, who was? I'm sorry, I have a brain fart here. Sorry, we should have a brain fart sound
flatulence,
effect.
sir. This is a family show.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The gentleman who did the Hobbit movies. What was his name again?
Peter Jackson.
Was it Peter Jackson? Okay, sorry. He did a World War
Lord
I.
of the Rings, you mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. He did a World War One movie here, or documentary here, and Zach did all the colorization of the World War One footage, and it looks amazing.
I saw that; it was great.
It looks amazing. But Zach is an amazing.
And he
colorist.
probably actually looks at photos from the
Oh, he
set,
does.
like behind
He
the
researches it.
the costume department's photos
Yeah.
that may have been in color. Yeah, and so
Yeah,
he gets it absolutely.
Yeah, he's
authentic.
amazing. We
as much as
really
he can.
should, because I do kind of know Zach. I should we should
name
probably
dropping.
do a show and bring him on the phone one day and let him tell us about that process that he goes through to colorize some of the newer things that look great.
That movie
You
was
know,
"They
I mean,
Shall Not Die." I think.
I think
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
right. I don't have the information in front of me, so if we're wrong on that title, please excuse us,
Yeah,
because I don't want to rain on Zach's parade at all, because it's a lot of work, tedious work goes into doing stuff like that.
frame by frame by
Yeah.
frame.
But after Frankenstein, when Karloff had finished with the Frankenstein monster, well, he hadn't finished with him yet, pardon me, but they started calling him Karloff the Uncanny. Karloff the Uncanny, because of his uncanny characterizations of the monster and all the other characters. Because he was the Mummy too. I mean, he was great as the Mummy.
Yeah, he was.
I know Lon Chaney Jr. played the Mummy too, and Christopher Lee played the Mummy. There's a lot of people who's played.
I like the remake of the Mummy with
And by the way, earlier
came out some years ago, the color one.
And by the way, I made a mistake. I said Oliver Reed as the Werewolf of London. It was Henry Hull. I apologize. It was Henry Hull who played the Werewolf of London.
Hit it, Al. Correction corner.
Correction corner. In the middle of the show, we got correction corner. But here's the funny thing.
Brandon Fraser, is that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I didn't.
That was good. It was actually a good movie.
Hit my head before I had to hit it on my phone.
But the Frankenstein actually put Karloff on the map. Okay, first and foremost with audiences around the world, and then in the second installment of the Frankenstein franchise, The Bride of Frankenstein, it actually put starring Karloff. Didn't say Boris
cool movie
Karloff.
poster.
But it
Hold
said-
it up for the Facebook Live.
but it says well, they can't see it.
Where's the? Could they?
They say it's
Hold that up to the. Yeah. In case
it's.
anyone's watching, let's look
I
out
don't
for
know
the
if enough people are really watching to make that worth their
We
while.
probably have
We'll put it on there.
two
But
people watching.
But
We
it
appreciate
says
you.
starring Karloff.
Very nice.
You can hand it back now.
Yeah.
You can hand it.
This is a nice book. You're
Yeah,
gonna
I
leave.
know, that's what I'm saying. No,
You're
I'm not
gonna leave this with me.
Books are awesome.
Because they'll become part of your collection, which we don't want that to
Well, we
happen.
can use them again. They'll have a.
Yeah, I know.
And then after you're
So-
gone, he'll say, I got this from Tom Williams.
No, he won't. He'll have forgotten all about it.
Lord forbid.
But again, Karloff went on to do so many things after the fact, and he was like I said, he was such a gentleman. He was an English guy.
I want to look up when he
He was
passed away.
he was an English gentleman, and
Boris.
and he was so good in that role, never to have been repeated. Even when Lugosi played Frankenstein and everyone, they just couldn't hold a candle to Karloff. But that's the way it goes in motion pictures.
And he was likable too.
Yeah, of course he was. Then there's The Curse of Frankenstein, which was rated X when it came out. Peter Cushing. Yeah, Peter Cushing was in it. And
I like him, Christopher Lee. They were friends.
Oh yeah, they were
Hammer
they were
horror. We'll get
best
into that
bud,
later in this podcast.
Frankenstein and the
Podblast.
Monster from Hell.
Yeah.
The Revenge of Frankenstein. Peter Cushing, and of course Young Frankenstein.
Karloff died February 2nd, 1969 in Midhurst, UK, United
is.
Kingdom.
How old was he?
He's pretty old.
Yeah.
Al, do you remember the
81. He was 81 years
No,
old.
he
when
wasn't
he
that
passed.
old. Al, do you remember the old comic books back in the 60s, Classics Illustrated?
Oh yeah.
I do
Remember
not
that?
collect them.
Well, there was a
Chance probably has
have you
some.
got
Marvel guy,
Have you
but I
got the
have-
Frankenstein one? See the Frankenstein?
I don't
one?
have that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I don't think they're I don't think they're as valuable.
No,
as,
they're not. But
they're still collectible.
But some
as heck.
titles are. Frankenstein is a very collectible
Oh,
title.
God, yeah.
I'm not sure what it brings money wise.
And there's pinball machines based
that's-
on Frankenstein.
Well, that's I'm not
We'll talk.
familiar. I'm not
That'll be
familiar
for our
with-
pinball
Oh, we got
podcast.
to do it. I mean, a pinball podcast.
Podblast.
See, now I can't say it. I said it earlier.
Podcast.
The madness is
Podblast.
contagious.
Podblast is. I mean, we will do our best to get someone from Stern, a pinball on the line and to talk
Yeah.
about all these pinball machines that are out there. Just for instance, there is a big Lebowski pinball machine.
You mentioned that last time.
And they only
the most
made,
valuable
they,
one of the
yeah,
most
they only
valuable.
made 90 of them.
Yep.
And it's not very many. I guess there was a copyright issue of some sort, you think? But anyway.
And speaking of interaction like that, we're going to start having a set time. We record this on Sundays.
And
Eastern
we'll go
time, we'll announce on our Facebook, like at 4
Yes.
p.m. Eastern time.
Right.
And we usually go for anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half, maybe longer than that. And where you can call in. Now, we got to figure out a phone line. One of us will give out a phone.
Yeah,
line
we can use one of our phones.
But
Actually,
we're going to get that going too, so you can interact live. So
because we want to hear.
And thank you for listening. We looked at the numbers. The numbers were huge last week for our.
the downloads on Mondays are great.
We
Yeah,
don't have to mention specifics, but it's really growing, and we appreciate you listening. We're going to get better, and we've got a lot of big things planned. This is just phase one.
Yeah, it takes time to get things up and running.
We just got our social media up and running the other day.
I mean, look how long it took Gilbert Gottfried's amazing colossal podcast to take off.
that is true.
I mean,
and he doesn't record every week.
Right?
But he's
doesn't-
talented. I'm not. But that's another-
that's irrelevant. But I mean, it's irrelevant as far as whether he's talented or not. But of course he is. He's funny. He's
But
funny.
everybody has an interest in nostalgia.
Yeah,
True.
you know what's hot
It's
now?
just
Is
like-
there's zombies, and there wasn't really a
Zombie,
zombie
yeah.
movie until Night of the Living Dead. George Romero,
Correct.
1968, filmed, I believe, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And that just started the zombie. But the
That's
zombies
right.
were around before then, sort of underground. But that
They
was the
were.
first movie.
They were.
I don't mean to throw you off,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to.
Zombieland 2's coming out.
Yeah, filmed in Atlanta as the first one was.
Which should be good.
That was one of the first big movies filmed in Atlanta after We Are Marshall in 2006.
I'm not sure how they're bringing Bill Murray back, because supposedly he's in it. But that's beside the point.
Well, it's a movie; they can do anything they want.
Just get him some decent upgraded Cubs tickets. He'll be good.
There you go. That's
Huge
true.
Cubs fan.
That's true. But
already
folks,
all
there's
set there.
so many classic horror movies that we haven't even touched on yet. Those were three of the biggies. The Frankenstein, the Wolfman, and we talked briefly about The Invisible Man with Claude Rains. Did you know that that's the only movie that Claude Rains ever watched of his own? Isn't that interesting?
Which one was this?
Was The Invisible Man. That's the
But
only
he
one.
made a
I know.
great movie.
He was an
couldn't even see
amazing.
himself in most of the pictures.
Bingo. That's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that's why that's the only
Just
one
like
he ever
Kevin
watched.
Bacon, all these great actors, they hate watching themselves.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the only reason he watched that one, because he couldn't see.
He was
himself.
transparent.
Yes, he was. He was slightly.
But there's so many
invisible.
movies, like Tom said, we haven't talked about. That Universal did. One that I like was with Herbert Lom, Phantom of the Opera.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a great
Terracotta,
movie.
the music, classical music. I
Yeah,
love
yeah.
it.
And then Lon Chaney Sr. as the original Phantom, which is what if anybody thinks of Phantom of the Opera, they either think of the musical Phantom of the Opera
Right, on Broadway.
that goes to the Broadway theaters, et cetera, or they think of Phantom of the Opera. It's Lon Chaney Sr.'s character, not anybody else's.
Damn right.
It's Lon Chaney Sr.'s boom character. That's who they think of. And we haven't talked about him because he died relatively young as well. And of course, he was Lon Chaney Jr.'s father. But he had made so many not monster films, but he worked for Universal, and he had made so many silent movies. He only made one sound movie. One. That's it. And then he died. And it was a remake.
That was scary. Family Opera. That
It was a
makeup.
remake. Oh, it was
scary.
It was. But he designed and created all of his own makeup, and it was amazing. There's a resin model kit out there of him holding his makeup kit open.
What was that movie that
It's just
Spencer
great.
Tracy made? He played the life of him.
No, it wasn't Spencer
It was-
Tracy. No, unfortunately, it was Jimmy Cagney. James Cagney.
That's
played
right, James
Man
Cagney.
of a Thousand Faces.
I'm
And-
sorry.
And I'm sorry. I love Cagney, but he was not the guy.
Man of a Thousand Faces.
He
I
was
think it
not
was,
the
yeah.
guy. Yeah, he was not the guy to play Chaney. I'm sorry, because he looked horrible in the Hunchback makeup. He looked horrible as Phantom of the Opera. He looked like as a little person in makeup. I just
Charles Lawton was the best Hunchback.
I'm a little poop too, and I'm a person too. Damn
and
it.
you ate at Mexican at lunch too.
Are
Oh,
you
wait,
pooped?
why-
What's
why
wrong?
did I go
No,
there?
I said
Why
I'm-
did we go there?
It's a family show. I didn't want to say I'm a little.
Oh,
Right.
oh.
Anyway,
Go
so
ahead.
I'm a little poop. No, well, I was gonna say, how does Vincent Price factor into all this monster craze?
See,
I know House of Wax.
Yeah,
great
but here's
movie, 3D.
the
I loved it.
Here's the thing: you could do it
Saw it
just
on Turner
one
Classic Movies.
blasted show on Price alone, Vincent Price, because well, let's face it, Al and I kind of grew up with him, even though Price was older than us, of course, but all of his movies are just the list. Like Karloff.
House on Haunted.
Yeah,
list some
like
of them.
Karloff, he had so many
I don't know all of them.
films.
Go down the list.
I mean, Pit and the Pendulum. He did the Edgar Allan Poe stuff was amazing, just amazing. The one where he was the only man left on Earth.
Last Man on Earth?
Last
or-
Man on Earth. I
Is that
think
what it
that's
was?
called.
They've done that, like Gemini Man. Like
yeah, but
different names, same concept.
But he did.
Charlton Heston did that movie.
Yeah, he did kind of. It was a Mega. It was
a Mega Man. Correct.
But he did kind of a different take on it. It was just. It was kind of creepy at the same time. He did the cheesy ones for Castle, William Castle.
Those low budgets.
Yeah, but the William Castle stuff was great.
Yeah.
He did the Tingler.
I remember
where they
watching
went to the
Movie
theater.
Macabre where they played all these.
Yes,
Elvira,
well, sure they
Cassandra
did.
Peterson
Sure
would
they did.
host them.
And there was a
here in
great
Atlanta.
tribute to him, a movie called Matinee with
The gentleman from the Roseanne Show.
John Goodman?
John Goodman.
John Goodman.
Great movie.
And that was a fantastic movie.
Movie
Matinee.
Macabre used to air here in Atlanta, Georgia, where we do the Podblast.
Yeah.
But WATL used to air it, as I recall, Channel 36.
Locally
and they
here
would
in
air
Atlanta.
3D movies. Like, we didn't talk about Creature from the Black Lagoon. Was
No,
that
we didn't.
Universal?
Yes.
Well, that's coming up.
We interrupt this program, this Podblast, because we have a phone call. Who is this? And where are you calling from?
Hey,
Yeah.
Hey, Colin.
Hey, Barry, how you doing?
Good. How you doing? Just tuned in tonight, listening to the horror stuff. Man, where do we begin on all the horror things? There's so many to get into. You guys are talking about some great stuff.
That's why it's a two-parter. Next week, we'll have the conclusion where we talk about the slasher films. I'm going to cover the slasher films that turned 40, and I'm also going to talk about it this Sunday on my regular The Nostalgic Podblast live in Facebook at 3:30 Atlanta time.
That's great. I think I like to make a correction here because I heard, I think Tom was talking there about Herbert Blum, the man from the Pink Panther movies. Great actor. Always loved everything he was in. He said a great Universal film, The Invisible Man with Herbert Blum. Herbert Blum was in the Hammer version of Invisible. I think was Herbert Blum? I'm sorry, Phantom of the Opera was a Hammer production by Terrence Fisher, not Universal with Herbert Blum.
Right.
I think Tom identified it as Universal. I just want to correct it as a Hammer film.
Well, good. I'm glad you did.
And the only reason I bring it up is because I'm a huge fan of the Hammer films. I started watching Hammer horror films from England long before I saw any of the original Universal films that the United States made through Universal Pictures, because I would watch movies late at night growing up on Friday and Saturday nights as a kid. I'd sneak back up out of bed. My mom would know it. I'd watch the late night horror movies that our local stations would show, especially Channel 9 out of Chattanooga with the horror host that they don't really. I know this thing Cooley still does it on MeTV, but there's a lot of local stations had their own Dr. Death Spin Cooley character back in the day. But I discovered Hammer horror when I was a kid in the middle of the night with the TV on in the living room. That was the only light that was in there, and they scared the crap out of me. But I couldn't look away. I had to keep watching them sitting on the floor right beside my big wood grain giant 25-inch color television that we had sitting on the floor, because back in those days, televisions were pieces of furniture, man.
Was it an RCA with that wood cabinet?
It did. We had an RCA one, but I think the first one we had was Zenith. Zenith television.
My grandparents had a Zenith. Yeah, I remember those well.
Oh man, I think they were made out of old tank parts from the military.
Yeah.
They sure seem like it. But the Hammer films, how great were they? Because they were actually the first films to come along, especially Dracula and the Frankenstein films with Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing, whom I always called the dynamic duo of horror, Cushing and Lee. They were the dynamic duo, and I love both those guys, along with Vincent Price later on as well. But Hammer was the first studio blood was red, not black and white.
Oh yeah, it was deep red. It was ruby red, crimson red. Yeah.
And that shocked a lot of people when those movies first came out in the late 50s. I think it was the horror of Dracula, which is actually just called Dracula in England, but the horror of Dracula is what it was named for American audiences. 58, 59, Curse of Frankenstein with Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee playing the creature in that. And then Dracula came on with Christopher Lee playing Dracula and Peter Cushing is Van Helsing. Cushing was always chasing him. If he wasn't the Doctor or Van Helsing, he was always chasing Christopher Lee's creature, and they were fighting in some way, and it was always great. But yeah, that red blood was shocking to some people when it came out in the late 50s, early 60s.
And what about the Wolfman? I like their take on the Wolfman, and it's kind of interesting to me that Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee were both part of the Star Wars universe, but many years apart. Peter Cushing being in the very first Star Wars in 1977, released May 25th, 77. And then, of course, Christopher Lee played Darth Dooku in Episode 2, the prequel, released in, 2002, I believe, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
And he was in Revenge of the Sith in 2005.
Just at the beginning, though, until he lost his head. Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned Curse of the Werewolf. That was Oliver Reed.
Right.
Directed by Terrence Fisher. Terrence Fisher was one of my favorite movie directors of all time because he was the one that was the most professional out of all those directors for Hammer. He got kind of caught up in that horror genre. And the Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed, Hammer took their turn with all the classic monsters. They got into vampires. They did a werewolf movie. They did The Mummy with, again, Christopher Lee being chased by Peter Cushing when Lee was playing the mummy creature, Imhotep. And they got into Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and a couple of different ways, doing a twist on it, doing Dr. Jekyll and Sister Hyde, where he would turn into an evil female. Hammer did that. They did so many sequels to their Frankenstein films, and they were their own cinematic universe back then, because sometimes Hammer would begin the next film with this ending scene from the film before it to remind you what happened at the end before. So they were kind of the way the Marvel films are today. They kind of did that in reverse, showed you a scene from the movie that you just saw before in the movie that you were watching recently that it's a sequel to. Yeah, different people played the creatures later on. They did one about kind of a Jack the Ripper movie called Hands of the Ripper. There's so many guys. To go to the Hammer catalog could be a show on its own, but there were a lot of them, and I loved all the Hammer films. Even the ones later on in the late 60s and early 70s where people kind of gave up on them. I was still wanting to see all the Hammer horror productions, as silly as some of them became. There were still, to me, there was something great about every one of them, even up to the last one.
Well said. And I remember watching those on WATL Channel 36, an independent station in Atlanta, part of Movie Macabre, hosted by Elvira, Mistress to the Dark, that we talked about tonight. That's where I first discovered Hammer horror in the Atlanta area. This is back in the early 80s, 1980s.
So you were discovering it right after I did. I was kind of watching them in the mid to late 70s on Channel 9 and Channel 9 out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, growing up in northeast Alabama, where I was, where I could only pick up stations with an antenna on top of the house, and that's how I was able to bring that station in and watch it, at least with a strong signal where the picture was great at the time. But I was never a big fan of all the Universal horror films. I know they're considered classics, but I loved most of the old original Universal films, which I discovered later on as a kid. Most of them are black and white, but I can count the ones I didn't love as much on maybe one hand. I didn't enjoy the Bela Lugosi Dracula film as much as everyone else did, because it kind of just I don't know, the movie just ends. I don't know how well you remember it, but it just kind of ends, and it's like, it's over, and it's the ending after they kill him, and it's just kind of comes to a screeching end. It's a very short film too. Do you remember the ending of Dracula with Bela?
I sure do. And I remember
saying that he's not classic. I'm not saying that it's a really bad movie or anything. I'm just saying it's not one of my favorites. And to be honest, The Mummy with Boris Karloff, the first Mummy film, is incredibly slow. It's a very slow. Dracula and The Mummy, out of those classic Universal films, are two of kind of their weakest classic ones that they did, because The Mummy's incredibly slow, and even as a kid, kid, I was like, oh man, come on, let's pick up the pace here. I know he's a mummy, but it's just for some reason those two stand out as not my.
Well, what do you think about zombies? Do you like slow zombies or fast zombies? Slow as in George Romero's Night of the Living Dead?
I think they're both.
And Dawn of the Dead?
Place. I mean, we were all used to seeing the slow zombies. That's just kind of the way it was. And we all know that zombies can be as slow or as fast as they can be. Even if they're slow, they catch people through the power of editing and acting. If the actor's told to, don't run quite as fast, or through editing, we make the zombie catch up with you quicker. I know that later on they became more horrific when they ran, which is very scary. Zack Snyder is not a director that I really love, but his remake of Dawn of the Dead I thought was fantastic.
I love the original in that mall shot in Pennsylvania.
The original
1977. George Romero, Day of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Night of the Living Dead. Those are my favorites. But
that's right, and I kind of compare them to Star Wars because the second one, Dawn of the Dead, the second one is my favorite. Like Empire Strikes Back is my favorite second Star Wars film.
Tom Savini's makeup was tremendous. So the intestines, it was just so gory. And I love the helicopter gag. That looked like a dangerous stunt where a zombie's head is sheared off by a helicopter blade. It was really cool.
And I first saw Dawn of the Dead as part of locally. We used to go to midnight movies at Acres Mill in Atlanta, near Cumberland and the Atlanta area. And we would go see Dawn of the Dead. We have several movies to choose from, and they would usually show Dawn of the Dead on Saturday nights at midnight, or Monty Python and the Holy Grail, or American Werewolf in London. You remember those days, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was a General Cinema Theater. I remember it well. Yeah. And they would have like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I don't know if it was that location, but maybe at the Cobb Galleria they did that. But do you remember watching Revenge of the Creature in 3D? It was a big event on TV back in, I think, 1983. And you had to buy like the blue and red 3D glasses. I remember it well. Our family watched it. It was, I believe it was Revenge of the Creature. It was a creature from the Black Lagoon movie. I think it was the second one, though. Go ahead.
I did, and that was the beginning of what I call the resurgence of 3D in the early '80s. A lot of movies were coming out in the theater, like our horror films, which they weren't that great in 3D back when they started hitting that in the theater. Because Friday the 13th Part 3, Jaws 3D. A lot of some of the other movies were coming out in 3D. But I do remember seeing Revenge of the Creature on television. I also do, where I was living locally, they showed another movie called Gorilla at Large in 3D as well. And then they also showed a movie called The Mask in 3D from the early 60s. So we got to see all three of those films locally on our television in 3D with those goofy glasses. Yeah.
Now, I remember Friday the 13th Part 3D, as it was originally titled, would look great in the theater. You're talking about on TV later. I agree with the blue and red lines. Yeah, it wasn't that effective when it would air later. Yeah, it looked pretty bad.
If you ever watch 3D and it's not in 3D, it's stupid.
Right.
Because you have all these stupid scenes of things coming toward the camera and swooping around and being goofy, and the arrow, Jason shoots the arrow and it comes towards you. Yeah, 3D is only good in 3D. And then when they would first release these things on home video, they weren't in 3D when we were first getting them. They were just the 3D effect was taken off.
Right.
It looked semi-normal with even 3D movies when they would reformat them to see it in 2D. They had this real weird color look to them. It wasn't a 3D thing. It was a washed out look weirdness to them. But yeah, I can't watch anything that was filmed in 3D. I can't watch it in non 3D. It's just dumb. But yeah, in the theater, Friday the 13th Part 3 was great, and it's actually a decent Friday the 13th film.
It is. First hockey mask, of course. Yeah. First Jason hockey mask. And how about, man, I really loved it. There were a lot of good gags in that, but gosh, something you said, I went in and out of my mind. Go on. It'll come to me.
You mean the arrow, Jason John?
Yeah, I like that where poor Vera got shot in the eyeball.
Yeah.
That wasn't what I was thinking of, though, but go ahead.
I think I only really owned the first 4 Friday the 13th films. The fourth one is definitely weaker than the first 3, but those are really the classic ones that I kind of always go back and watch again. Maybe not always 4, but the first 3 to me are good, solid Friday the 13th films until they got silly later on. I mean, Jason Takes Manhattan. If you notice with the Friday the 13th films, the more they progressed, the less gory they became.
Right.
There were less makeup effects in them.
But in Jason Takes Manhattan, I love the fight where he punches that one dude, one punch, and his head flies clean off into a dumpster.
And it was a comedy. I mean, it was kind of a comedy. It really was.
There was a comedic
And,
scene, yeah.
The best thing about Jason Takes Manhattan is the realistic scene of Jason walking in New York and nobody noticing him.
Right.
I mean, he's this weirdo, hockey mask creature thing with a machete walking around the way he did, the way he looked, and no one paid him any mind because, hey, he's another weirdo in New York. But yeah, good stuff. Horror films. I want to go back to Universal films. Some of my favorite Universal films. If I had to pick 2 or 3 favorites from Universal, I have to pick The Invisible Man with Claude Rains. You guys were talking about that and how you never watched the film. I had not heard that, but I guess it stands to reason if an actor doesn't like the way he looks on screen, that would be the one to watch. The Invisible Man is incredible. He gives a great performance in it, even though you don't see him through the whole film, but it's a tribute to him. He's such a great actor, acting with his voice and his mannerisms as the Invisible Man when he kind of loses his mind.
I remember now what it was. Yeah. Well, you were talking about. Well, you were talking about how hokey 3D looks in 2D. You remember how SCTV? We've talked about this before offline, and on your show, BK on the Air on WBHF Saturday mornings from 10 a.m. to noon, every Saturday live on the air and on TuneIn and everywhere you can find your fine podcast.
And you're there with us too.
Yeah,
you're right there with us. Yeah.
Honored to be a part of the team. And but you remember the parody? Of course you do, on SCTV.
Dr. Tongue, yes, Dr. Tongue was played by John Kent.
And I talked about that with Jim Gossett. Jim Gossett was on the Podblast, that comedian. He's been all over the country. Newsmakerline.com. We did a show on Saturday Night Live versus SCTV, and we talked at great length. He did a great impression of some of the cast members of SCTV. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, you are absolutely correct. Those things look pretty hokey when they weren't in actual 3D, some of those gags. Yeah.
They did, along with The Invisible Man being one of my favorites Universal. I also loved Wolfman. Out of the 3 main creatures, which I love, Frankenstein with Boris Karloff, and some would argue The Bride of Frankenstein is a better film than the first Frankenstein. But to me, I always thought they were one film because you can watch them back to back because they happen just right. It happens just right after that film. So The Bride of Frankenstein could be watched with the first Frankenstein in one film. Kind of like the 2 Avengers movie or the 2 last Harry Potter movies or whatever. Fantastic. Love the Wolfman. The first Wolfman with Lon Chaney. I've always had a soft spot for the Wolfman creatures, the werewolves and stuff. Because I'm a dog lover. You know, if I wanted to turn into one of the creatures, I wouldn't want to be a put together monster like Frankenstein. I wouldn't want to be a vampire. I'd want to be a werewolf. They get turned into a dog. That's great. I love the Wolfman, and I also love
the Silver Bullet.
I love Creature from the Black Lagoon. Probably one of the best Universal films. It was fantastic. It's just a wonderfully directed film. Everyone in it's great. Julie Adams was a beauty. Yeah. No wonder he wanted to get after her because she was a nice lady all the way up till she passed away.
She's a nice lady.
Once many years ago.
She's a nice lady, and I love the monster. It's one of the best monsters on screen of all time. The Creature.
It was. If you watch it, that monster suit, much like Planet of the Apes, it holds up to this day as a great suit on a film of a monster. It still looks great.
What was his nickname again? It's kind of like Michael Myers was called The Shape. I forget. It's on the tip of my tongue. The Creature. They had another name for the Creature from the Black Lagoon.
Did they call him the Gill Man?
Yes, the Gill Man. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah,
the Gill Man.
What's funny is when they did that movie in the 80s called The Monster Squad. Remember The Monster Squad?
Yes.
It's a great movie. Well, they couldn't call that creature in the movie The Creature from the Black Lagoon. They referred to him as the Gill Man, and they couldn't make him look exactly like the Universal creature either because I think that was a copyright thing they didn't want to infringe upon. Much like Hammer. When Hammer did the first Frankenstein film, they couldn't use the Jack Pierce-looking makeup for Christopher Lee's creature, Frankenstein creature in the first film. He had to look a lot different, which I think he looked a little more horrific than the original Frankenstein, the way they had Christopher Lee made up. And his reveal was very shocking because of that quick zoom in of the camera when his bandages are taken off. And then later on, they did a movie called The Evil of Frankenstein, directed by Freddie Francis for Hammer. And they did have the rights to use the blocky-looking Jack Pierce kind of makeup for the creature in that Hammer film, but they never went back to it. They only used it for
excellent stuff, Barry. You're a wealth of knowledge.
Well, not as much as you, but it's always good. Maybe we put our heads together on trivia one night. Maybe we can win some money somewhere if it comes down to movies and television and stuff.
Oh yeah,
So,
you, me, and Alan. You, me, and Alan know a lot together collectively. It's a great new friendship, and I'm glad we met. I don't know where you've been all my life, brother.
That's good to know.
In a non-sexual way.
I appreciate it. Believe me, it's been great. Yeah, I mean, the monsters have always been there. Some things do scare me. I mean, I know you're talking more about the classic monsters tonight and Hammer horror, and you can get into the slasher films later.
Yeah,
I check back in with you, or next on your next segment, or this Saturday, or next Thursday.
It'll be Sunday, Sunday at 3:30, and then next Thursday night.
Sunday, I'm sorry.
I'll conclude the discussion of it. I call it Halloween in July instead of Christmas in July, and I'm going to wrap it up next Thursday night when I conclude with the slasher films, and a lot of them turned 40. A lot of them turned 40 this year. Anyway.
That's right. There's still a lot of those lesser known ones, or not lesser known to us, but lesser known to some people. Like I was always a big fan of Bob Clark's Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, his own zombie movie, which I thought was really, really great. First major zombie movie after Night of the Living Dead, because everybody seems to forget Bob Clark's little movie, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. It's a great movie.
Amen.
And getting into the 80s, like Happy Birthday to Me, like some of the others that came off the Winter Man from the early 70s with the man from The Equalizer, Edward Woodward. Great. It's considered the Citizen Kane of horror films for good reason, because it's a fantastic movie. We got a whole another realm of 70s and 80s slasher films. Even Universal has remade Dracula several times, and I tend to gravitate towards the fantastic John Badham directed 1979 version with Franklin Jello, which was a great version of Dracula with John Williams doing the score for that, the music score.
Right on, and I'm holding up for the camera My Bloody Valentine, an old video disc of that I have in my collection. Anyway, and Prom Night.
A Canadian movie, My Bloody Valentine, was great. I loved the miner in that. That miner outfit was scary, very scary looking.
Yeah, his eyes looks all demented. It was very well done. And those hearts in the box, open up the Valentine, there's human hearts in it. Ooh, creepy.
It was
good gore.
So great. Then you can get into eventually from Hammer to Hammer had several rival production companies that tried to compete with them. One was called Amicus Film. You know about Amicus Film? A movie called the original the Vault of Horror and Tales from the Crypt. That a lot of people don't remember that the HBO show called Tales from the Crypt. Well, the first one that came out was in the 70s. It was a Amicus film called Tales from the Crypt, directed by Freddie Francis, a ex-Hammer director, with little vignette stories in it that was great. House That Dripped Blood, all those scary movies that had the short stories in them that scared us all as kids. That's another realm you can get into. There's so much horror. It's horrible. It's
horrible.
It's horrible. There's so much horror to talk about it.
Creep Show, the anthology was very powerful.
Yeah.
Good
stuff. I mean, all those they did a lot of, they call them omnibus movies or whatever, anthology movies. But yeah, there's so many to talk about. And
even Poltergeist, one of our favorites, Poltergeist. I think that's more of a horror film.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's there's so many that I don't know if you can squeeze it in two different shows.
That's why I'm going to spread this out over 3 shows. It's just part 1, basically, of 3. So cool.
Well, I just want to call in and check in with you on the Universal and at least the Hammer stuff that I always felt so passionate about. The first Hammer film I ever saw was Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, and when it opened at the beginning, it showed the scenes of the last film, which I hadn't seen as a kid. I'm like, why is this showing him die at the beginning from the movie before? Oh, I guess this is what happened before. It's in the past. But later on, when I got older, I was able to experience all of them that I missed on home video. Because, as a kid, we could only catch movies when they were on. We never knew. I had to check the TV guide. But Christopher Lee, I vote for Christopher Lee as my favorite Dracula. He and Franklin Jella really rank high on my Dracula list as actors.
That's right. And I'm jumping ahead, but when you think about Friday the 13th and the actress who played Jason's mom, Betsy Palmer, she was a beauty queen back in the 60s. She was on the game show circuit. You know, she did it for the money, and she said she regretted it later, and she was in flashback scene in Friday the 13th Part 2. But Betsy Palmer was a beautiful woman back in the day. Anyway, I digress.
Well, Jason's mom, I always sometimes we give away tickets on the radio your Halloween when we have some tickets or free meal tickets or whatever. We turn it into a trivia question. I always bring that up sometimes. I go, hey, here's a trivia question for you. How many people in the first Friday the 13th film, how many people did Jason kill? And it's really an easy question if you know the film.
Right. That's right.
And the answer is, Chance?
No, you answer it.
No, it's 0.
Because he wasn't the killer. It was the mom.
That's right. Mom killed everybody in the first Friday the 13th film. It's a good thing to know. And she was a good actress. I did go back and check out a couple of films that she was in the past. And yeah, she was acting for many, many years before.
She was a panelist on I've Got a Secret and all those live game shows of the 50s and early 60s and stuff. And yeah, she was something. And
did she play a great mom to Jason? She was creepy and
devoted.
Lost it there toward the end. And you're really like, oh my God, she's like really creeping me out.
I know. and the whole it was the sound guys playing with her saying, kill her, mama, kill her, mama. Yeah, she's all demented, talking to herself, chasing Alice through the woods.
Oh, yeah. And it was another movie that kind of changed it all. And a lot of people don't know it. You know, they compare the Friday the 13th with Halloween by John Carpenter. And they're two completely different movies. I mean, I don't know that sometimes I don't even want to count Halloween by John Carpenter as a slasher film. It's really completely something much more than that. It really is. I mean, it's
psychological thriller.
It's a great movie. It is. It's a great movie. And Friday the 13th, for all the people make fun of it and whatnot, it was an important film in horror when it came along. And what a success it was. I mean, it shocked the heck out of everybody, and me too. I fell for that horror and that movie, a slasher film. Not all of them were created equal, but the Friday the 13th started something new in the 80s that kept going for quite a while. For work on.
Tom Savini makeup again. He only worked on the first film, Friday the 13th. And I met him at Dragon Con a few years ago, and he has like really pretty daughters and stuff. He's a madman, though. He is so inventive and pretty twisted with the gags you can come up with in terms of murders.
Too. I mean, when he was in From Dusk Till Dawn with George Clooney, he was really good at that as Sex Machine. He was funny. He was really great in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yes, he was. We're going to talk about that next week for sure, and probably this Sunday when I get to talking about the 40th anniversary of many films, a lot of which you've mentioned tonight, like Happy Birthday to Me, yada yada yada. We'll count them down, and I'm going to play some scenes, and we all know these. I mean, at least if you're a horror geek and a sci-fi geek like you and I are, you'll know these scenes. So if I play a clip that I can't show visually, you'll know from the sound. You'll know these scenes. You'll know these lines. You'll know it by heart.
Well, before I hang up and go tonight, I want to mention 3 that not a lot of people may have seen but are really good films in their own right. One of them is a Universal film from way back, and it is a sequel to Dracula, and it's called Dracula's Daughter.
Right.
Have you seen Dracula's Daughter?
Yeah, I did.
It's more of a psychological thing than anything else, and it is a sequel to the Bela Lugosi first Dracula film. Check it out. It's very well done. It's not a lot of people saw it. And I don't think it did that well, but if you ever watch it, you'll go, man, this is a great film. So one of the lesser-known Universal films, Dracula's Daughter. Also check out, if you ever want to check out another version of Dracula, watch the Spanish version of Dracula. It doesn't have Bela Lugosi. There's a Spanish actor playing Dracula in it, but it's filmed on the same set at Universal, and it's in Spanish. And to me, in a lot of ways, it's superior to the Lugosi version, but it's great. Have you seen the Spanish version of Dracula?
No, I haven't. Sounds great.
Yeah, it's great. It's put out by Universal as well. It's just all in Spanish with subtitles. It's really good. And another film is I mentioned it earlier with Edward Woodward called The Wicker Man. And don't even bother with the don't even bother with the Nicolas Cage remake from a few years back. It's horrible.
No, I want to see the original with Britt Eklund, future Bond girl. She was going to be in I think it was before Man with the Golden Gun from 1974, the second Roger Moore James Bond film. She played Mary Goodnight, but she's in The Wicker Man. And I think she's naked in it.
She is. She is. But she has a body double for a couple scenes, but some of the close-ups of her topless is her.
Yeah.
And
Rod
also
Stewart's
Ingrid
former
Pitt.
squeeze. Go ahead.
Yes, Rod always had good taste. You know, he was a Rachel Hunter there too for a while. You know.
I like Alana Stewart too, but I digress. Back in the day.
Ingrid Pitt is also on The Wicker Man, another great, beautiful Hungarian actress that was in some Hammer horror films too. And the other film I want to recommend that isn't that well known. Wicker Man's well known, but it's more of a cult classic than anything else. Christopher Lee's in Wicker Man too.
Yes, he is. I have it right here on my shelf.
Sean Connery's wife is also in Wicker Man, or ex-wife when he was married to her. And the other one is called Darkness Falls. Have you ever seen a movie called Darkness Falls?
I have not.
Darkness Falls came out in the 2000s. I think it was, when did it come out? 2010, 2007? It was somewhere in there. I have to look it up. But it's a twisted tale about the Tooth Fairy. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Just check it out. It really surprised me. It's called Darkness Falls, and it's a wonderful, scary, make you jump, make you check, things you don't watch it at night with the lights out. I even say that as an adult. But Darkness Falls was an underrated movie that didn't do that well in the theater, but it's hence grown to be a very popular film. People recognize it now, but they didn't recognize it when it came out. It's one of those things. I'm sure I'll have some more but on another show to tell you about.
Cool. I have an audio glitch. I was going to say, Samantha turned me on to the Vincent Price House of Wax that you mentioned. I've never seen it in 3D. Have you seen it in 3D?
No, I never saw it in 3D, but I've seen it several times. I have it on DVD. But and there's also they made a short film back in the 30s of it with another actor that's included on the DVD as well, which is really good as well. It's a much shorter version of it, but yeah, the Vincent Price version of House of Wax is incredible. It's a great movie.
Awesome. Great stuff, man. I love it when you call in. I appreciate you calling. And I'm looking forward to seeing you this Saturday for BK on the Air on WBHF, which you can stream on WBHFradio.org. Saturdays, 10 a.m. to noon live. And that's Atlanta Eastern Standard or Eastern Daylight Time.
Thanks for the plug, man. And I shared your live feed too on the BK Facebook page, and glad to be part of it. And I'm glad that you're part of our show too. And I'll still be here probably up to when you're done tonight, man. So I'll talk to you later on, brother.
Sounds good. Thanks for calling, Barry. Drive safely here.
Buddy.
All right, bye. Barry King. Now let's continue on with the radio version. And let me see. There we go.
Yes, I knew that because I remember video releases. It was part of the Universal collection.
It was this past weekend as part of some type of a convention in town.
Revenge of the Creature.
Your buddy Shane is having they're showing Creature from the Black Lagoon at the Plaza in October.
Well,
I'm going to that.
No, they're not. They did that at this convention this weekend at 4:00 yesterday.
Oh, they did?
Oh, don't mention it.
So I'm not. I said convention.
Okay.
But they're actually doing. Was it House on Haunted Hill? Is that the Price movie? I'm sorry, the title escapes me because I wasn't prepared to do Vincent Price stuff today. But they're doing the Vincent Price black and white film, House on Haunted Hill. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. That's what
that's a great
the Spook Show is going to be doing at the Plaza here in Atlanta, sometime around Halloween or before Halloween.
Are we going to go?
Yeah, you're darn skippy we are.
It's October now.
Yeah,
it's already Halloween season, full swing, baby.
Yeah, I know, and all the Halloween accoutrement is out there, and
Vincent Price died in '93, October 23rd.
93,
just shy of Halloween, '93.
Yeah. And
he had a great line in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein.
Yeah, he did
at the end.
Say it.
What was it?
Al, say the line.
Go ahead, tell us, Al.
Tell us.
I can't remember.
Well,
brother,
that was a drive-by by Al Hardy.
Sing.
I know it was a great line. What did he say?
See, it was such a great line. Hey, fans, if you know what it is, Al will send you $1. No, I'm just kidding. He will not send you $1 because he doesn't have a dollar.
Let's see. I have the first dollar I earned. Let's see.
I'm sure you'll find it, and we'll come back next week and do some correction.
I have the movie downstairs.
Correction corner, Al. Okay, well, good. Al, we're glad that you have it downstairs. But
that doesn't help us.
That doesn't help us right this second because everyone doesn't know what the title of that is.
Now, something about, well, that's too bad. They were sitting in the boat you know, and he lights up a cigarette and he says, "Well, that's too bad." you know.
I see. I don't remember him being in the movie. I'll be honest.
No,
with
his
you.
voice is in the movie.
Oh well,
I
you
just
didn't
said
say
his,
that.
his voice at the end.
I just don't remember.
They used
that
his
part.
voice.
The Abominable Dr. Phipps.
Vibes. Abominable. The Abominable.
Remember that?
That was a good movie too.
That was spooky looking.
And
Looks like a skeleton,
they did
like a
like
skull.
they did like 2 or 3 of those
Yeah.
movies, which were very, very, very good.
Just
very
looking
good
at
movies.
his
But
filmography.
But he did TV. He did the Muppet Show. He did a lot of stuff and records.
House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah, House on Haunted Hill. That's
Mhm.
right. He did a Michael Jackson video.
19.
He did the voice. Remember the voice in the
Thriller,
Michael Jackson
yeah.
video?
Thriller. Yep. It was the narrator.
So I'm just saying, this one of many things. He had that voice that just stuck with you. And you go, wow, what a great voice! What a great voice he had. And as Karloff, I mean, to me, Karloff and Price were in the same boat as far as having amazingly cool voices. You can just sit there and listen to them. Because I've got 2 LP records which are hard to find, called Tales of the Frightened by Boris Karloff, and he came out in the early 60s. And I had one of them. I didn't have the second one until recently, actually. When I say recently, a couple of years. I had the first one. We had it when I was a kid, and we would all get in a room and turn off all the lights because you're supposed to. The record says turn off all the lights if you dare, and listen to this record. And it scared the crap out of us, all me and my cousins, and we loved it. To this day, I can play that for my cousins, and they go, "Where did you find that?" Because it was such a great record. Because his voice, he goes, "Are you one of the frightened?" And then it starts with the music, and it's just amazing. But Carl and Vincent Price had the same kind of voice. Think about it. Think about any horror actors. Claude Rains is great, but he wasn't a horror actor. He did The Invisible Man. Okay, boom, and that's really the extent of his horror. But he was a fantastic actor. I mean,
He did a lot of good movies with Betty Davis.
Oh, and by the way, he was Betty Davis's favorite actor to play with in
Really?
all of Hollywood.
Yeah,
And he was nominated 4 times for Best Supporting Actor. Never even got an Oscar. Explain that one to me.
One of his last
Explain
movies
that one to me.
was Lawrence of Arabia.
Yep, and he died in 1967.
Yeah.
He died in 1967.
All right. What's your favorite 3D classic monster movie?
Well, me and Al.
I hate 3D.
I should.
really.
Well, wait a minute, Al.
With the blue and the red.
Right.
and, you know,
Well, me and
lines.
Al and I had the opportunity to go see
House of
of Wax.
Yeah.
In a private theater here in Atlanta. Well, one of Al's good buddies, and Al invited me along. And tell them about it, Al. They had the dual projectors, dual 35
They had the
projectors.
dual projectors, and we had the glasses. And as an added bonus, before the feature, they showed Spooks, the 3D
You're
short
right. I
in
forgot
3D.
Yeah, you're right. I forgot
I've got a
about
film
that.
print of that in
I
3D.
forgot.
That's a Three Stooges short.
Yes, it's in
Spooks.
3D. It was filmed in 3D.
Yeah.
That was
And,
all. And
it was awesome. It was wonderful.
I remember back in the 80s, like when I was just a little channel 36, WATL used to air some of the classics like Creature from the Black Lagoon in 3D, and they had glasses in retail stores. Anyway, now 3D is very sophisticated, of course.
Of course,
But
of course.
It's all digital, but yeah, it looks pretty good.
But back then, they had to run, for instance, if a film was, let's say a film was 5 reels and 35 millimeter, which is about roughly 20 minutes a reel,
20 minutes
or,
a reel.
or less, they had to splice all those reels into one big giant 6,000-foot reel or whatever the reel size ended up being.
Yeah.
And they had to, basically kind of had duplicate prints if you get right down to business. It
Yeah.
was kind of duplicate. They ran in sync side by side, correct, Al?
Mm-hmm.
And if any frames had gotten boogered up, running the, missing, it would get out of sync. Back we're talking back in the 50s here now, in the early 60s when that's how they had to do it. Whereas now it's just
So the sound wouldn't match the picture.
Right, it would. It
Right.
would get out of sync, boom, just that fast. Whereas today it's just one. It uses a special lens,
Right.
which splits it off, and it's a very cool looking lens too. It's very expensive, but we got to see it. It was Technicolor, and it was gorgeous, wasn't it, Al? You remember
It's
that?
beautiful. Yeah.
It was a very small theater. Just it's a shame you didn't know us back then, Chance. You could have got to see it, but it was an amazing experience because I got to tell you, it's just like Cinerama. You don't get that experience every day. Yes, you can rent House of Wax on Blu-ray or buy it or whatever. It's not the same thing.
No,
It's
it's
film.
not.
It's film. But that was my favorite 3D film. Was it the best? No, but it was my favorite because of just that experience alone.
And it's a suspenseful picture too.
Yeah,
if you've
of
never
course.
seen it and you don't
Of
know
course
what's
it
coming.
was. Yeah, of course it was. It was a good film, but the creature movies were it was a 3D craze going on back
That was
then.
a cool looking monster.
Yeah.
Well, they were trying to
Another
fight.
pinball machine, 1992.
They were trying to fight television. You know,
Yeah.
television was taking over the theater
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And so they would, you know, it's just like CinemaScope came around.
Yeah.
Big screen to
Right.
get people to go back
Wide
to the
screen.
movies
Right.
instead of
Compete with
watching
television.
TV.
And then the film companies started competing with each other. VistaVision versus Panavision.
And you had
versus
Cinerama for a while.
Cinerama and all
Yeah.
that stuff.
But gimmicks to get butts and
gimmicks.
seats
That's all it was.
in the
That's
theater.
all it was. And Cinerama was
Sensorama.
well, Sense-Around.
Sense-Around, yeah.
But it was so expensive to do Cinerama. Not that many theaters were capable of doing it.
Atlanta had a few of them.
Yeah,
Like
because you had-
Earthquake was released in Sense-Around.
Yes, it was, and so was Midway.
Irwin Allen's disaster movie.
Well, Earthquake was the first one.
Yes, it was.
It would shake.
But when
I
they-
don't remember because I wasn't around, but
Yeah.
I heard it.
I remember it.
I didn't see it
And
in
the
theater.
Usurin Vega cabinets, I remember.
I saw that at the Roxy Theater downtown in Atlanta. Well,
Wow.
actually in Buckhead when it was a movie theater.
Well, I remember.
Earthquake.
Did you like it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I remember Midway was
That was
another
another
one.
phase of Hollywood, the disaster movie.
Oh,
We
sure
talked
was.
last time
Yeah, sure
about
was.
trends in
But
Hollywood.
Midway was another one
the
where the
space trend.
plane started up on the carrier deck at the beginning of the movie. and You
Airport.
felt them.
Yeah.
You felt them. Well,
Yeah.
Airport was not a Sense-Around movie.
No, I'm just saying the disaster.
But
Shut up, let you
yeah.
talk.
No, exactly. You're right.
Roller Coaster was a Sense-Around movie.
I had a
Remember
scope
Roller
print of
Coaster?
that. I sold,
yeah, and that was shot in my hometown in Norfolk, Virginia. I was from Newport News, but from
Was
Nor-
it
in Norfolk.
like Bush? Bush Gart? Bush?
No, that was Ocean View
Bush
Amusement Park. And they actually
Okay.
destroyed the roller coaster. No, for the movie because they were going to
They
tear
were
it
going
down
to tear it up anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
That
so
was terrifying. Guy puts a bomb on the tracks.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
It's just a horrible.
Timothy Bottoms.
You don't want to put
wasn't it?
that out there for copycat. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh no. Tell me about it.
Jesus. Lord in heaven.
But see, then he blew up that one. They went to King's Dominion in, just north of Richmond, Virginia, or is it south, and tried to blow up that one. That's where the movie ended on the movie Roller Coaster. But anyway, it's great movies, folks. There is so much nostalgia to Podblast about. We oh my gosh, we've only tipped the iceberg here, and to have you involved with us with comments, etc., would be so helpful and welcome.
And again, go to
Tell
our
your-
Facebook page and give us suggestions.
Absolutely.
Right?
Nostalgic Podblast on Facebook. It's a group,
and tell your friends.
and we're on
'cause-
Twitter as well.
Yeah, tell your friends. We're just a group of guys that's sitting around shooting a breeze about stuff that we know about, and we try to be as factual and informed as we possibly can be. And with your help, we'll be even better at it.
And we're going to bring experts in. We're going to bring people that know about things that we don't know about, that we think are interesting, we'd like to learn about. Now, Al, I know we're getting long, but allow me about 7 minutes to talk about slasher films.
How about 5?
Okay, that'll work, because I've got a trailer. We're talking about 3D. One of my favorite slasher horror movies. I won't talk about all of them because I know that's not your guys' cup of tea, but I loved Friday the 13th, the original one. And the thing I think was cool was the music the music's what really made it terrifying. And in fact, in the early movies, like the first 3 or so, when someone would die, it would flash white. I just love that effect where it would flash white.
Let's roll
right before they died.
Are you ready?
Roll song.
And the music is by Harry Manfredini.
All right, here it is.
Here comes the
Hold
coffin.
This is the trailer for Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D.
Weekends are a good time to escape to the woods. Unless the weekend begins with Friday the 13th. Because 13 is an unlucky number. But out here, so are 1 through 12. Because these are Jason's woods. And nobody leaves them alive. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. Jason, you can't fight him. You can't stop him. And now, you can't even keep him on the screen. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. Now, when it comes to killing in Jason's woods, Jason will come to you. Friday the 13th, Part 3 in 3D. A new dimension in terror. It will scare you. Count on it.
So that was in 3D, and that was a big deal at the time. That was released in 1982. The Friday the 13th movies were hugely successful for Paramount Studios. By the way, all the movies we've talked about, the Universal Horror, are all available on Amazon, on eBay. Go to Universal Horror Classics, and you can stream them, of course.
Yeah. Paramount Plus.
Check them out if you want. Buy them. We appreciate the use of these clips. And Paramount Studios, as I mentioned, has the Friday the 13th movies. Now, there's another monster we didn't touch on that I love, and that is Godzilla. Godzilla.
That sounds like metal.
Godzilla King of Monsters was out this summer, and it was fantastic on the big screen. Al and I saw it, and we loved it.
It's filmed here in Atlanta or at Pinewood.
Yeah, at Pinewood in Fayetteville, Georgia, on the south side.
Great movie, by the way. So get it. It's on DVD now, so check it out.
I just want to say I love the Japanese horror movies and the monster movies, Mothra and the like. And that wound up spawning television shows like Ultraman that I love. No one knows this, and they're not available, but there's a show I love called The Space Giants, Japanese show about a family of Transformer rockets that fought giant robots, and there was an alien named Rodak who wanted to take over the Earth. And Al had all of them, 52 half-hour episodes, translated into English on 16mm film, and he sold them. And these are highly cult classics. I have the whole thing. We could do a whole show on Space Giants, but we won't because no one really can watch them.
We had a buddy, Tom
they're
and I
still on YouTube, but they're just clips here and there. But there were Lugo men that could take over people's identities, these space creatures, and they would melt when they were hit by the gamma rays that Gam, Silvar, and Goldar had in their antenna. Anyway,
we
Space
have to
Giants.
say, we got to say goodbye.
We do. Oh.
Yeah, we got to go.
All right. Well,
I want to thank everybody for listening.
Well, there's so much more we could have discussed, and we'll discuss it later on other podcasts before Halloween. We'll have some more cool things to talk about.
And once again, Chance, don't forget to tell them about Facebook and Twitter and
Nostalgic Podblast is our Facebook group page. We just set it up a few days ago.
The Nostalgic
And
Podblast.
Nostalgic Podblast on Twitter. And what we do is we tweet out the latest Podblast.
That's right.
As well as other facts and things. And you can interact with us. And we appreciate the interaction that we talked about at the top of the show. So we'll see you next time. And I'm going to, by the way, the 100th Atlanta Comic Convention. I just want to give them a plug because it's the first time in history there have been 100 conventions. Ooh. And they started over 25 years ago. They do one every 3 months at the Marriott Century Center Hotel. And it's great. It's for comic collectors. It's one day only, always on Sunday from 11 a.m. till 4 p.m. And they have a raffle drawing. This time it's for $600 dealer credit. Wow. Good. And so the odds are good of winning, but it's just great. If you show up in a cosplay outfit, they give you an additional chance to win the grand prize. But that's a lot of fun. So salute to Atlanta Comic Convention's 100th show, which is Sunday, October 13th.
Well, Al could go dressed just as he is right now, right?
In his Kicks country shirt, 101.5 Atlanta radio.
Say goodbye, Tom.
Well, but Al, there's so much more.
I know we gotta go. Say goodbye, Chance.
Don't forget to put your mask back on, everybody, as we leave the building today. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time on the Nostalgic Podblast.
Bye.
Later.
And we're back here live in
the
Washington Financial Studios, and we don't have a whole lot of time left, but that was episode number 1 of Horror Movies, and part 2 will be on next Saturday at 2:00.
That show's scary.
And we got a trailer for you later when we sign off for that next week's show, which focuses on slasher films and modern horror movies.
Right.
But guys, I want to mention that I'll be with Mike Brooks at Dawsonville Gun next Saturday.
Rest in peace, Mike Brooks.
March 21st. Mike Brooks will be there from noon to 2, and then Jim Gossett will be at the Semper Fi Bar and Grill that night in Woodstock. Sold out show.
Oh yeah.
But go to newsmakerline.com.
July 24th, he's performing in the Atlanta area.
Final thoughts, guys.
One more thing.
2021.
You have a final thought?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
At the Delray Theater, Delk Road.
Real quick.
Newsmakerline.com.
Talking about the Invaders on MeTV. It airs at midnight. Tonight's episode has Suzanne Plachette as a stripper named Vicky.
Suzanne Plachette is a stripper.
Who gives our hero.
I mean, she's too wholesome to be.
Yeah.
Well, this was 1966 when this was shot. Aired in 67.
Before, what was the TV show
Newhart.
she was on with Bob Newhart?
Bob Newhart.
The Bob Newhart show. That was after.
Yeah.
But it's going to air at midnight tonight on MeTV, which is 69.4 over the air, and channel 17 on Comcast, and channel 32, easy for me to say, on AT&T and Dish, et cetera, et cetera. But check it out. It's a great episode. And it's the first one where you see the aliens burn up and disappear when they're killed. And there's a lot of violence. It's like the Mafia. It's more like Mafia than sci-fi.
Well, thanks to Chance, I have the whole series. He gave it to me. It was a Christmas present, I believe.
It's an awesome show.
Oh, yeah.
Episode 3, The Mutation, tonight on MeTV at midnight.
Or go to Al's house and watch it. He'll play it for you.
I'll play it for you. Come on over.
Al, and next week, will you explain to people how they can listen to our station through Bluetooth in their car? For those that don't know, you don't have to do it now because we're short on time. In case
most people have
in.
Bluetooth anyway in their cars, the newer cars, and all you have to do is just go to your iPhone, your Android phone, and set up your Bluetooth because your car has an ID and it sees the ID, and it's just really simple. And then you can stream WTZA.
Sure.
And listen to
talkofatlanta.com.
Yeah.
And fistfulofradio.com.
And boom, you can hear it in your car. Anywhere.
Yeah.
Or call Al personally.
In the world.
Or any podcast.
Yeah, call me personally. But
all right, we're gonna head over to Danny O's here in a few minutes. So I hope they're listening and they're waiting for us.
Yeah.
Nah.
And we'll
you got the trailer ready, buddy?
And we'll be back here again next Saturday at 2:00.
Same bat channel.
All right, say goodbye.
And goodbye.
Are you old enough to remember this? If you remember that classic scene, then tune in Saturday at 2 p.m. to the nostalgic pop culture Pop Blast. This time it's our two-part special to horror movies. Join us as we reminisce about classic Universal monster movies, the slasher flicks of the 1980s, and all of the movies that make you jump and scream. Featuring many classic clips and interviews with the stars, plus your phone calls. That's the nostalgic pop culture Pop Blast. Saturdays at 2 p.m. right here on Talk of Atlanta, WTZA 102.1 FM, 1010 AM, and talkofatlanta.com.
Oh my God. Every time I hear that promo, welcome back. Flounder. Oh God.
The late great
That's
Mike
his
Brooks.
favorite song at
Like
the
Tony
end.
Soprano. It's very gay. I'm sorry. Come on, it's very gay.
The Mike Brooks Show, weekdays 1 to 4 on 102.1 and AM 1010 WTZA. We are the Talk of Atlanta.
And that's how that was. Next week, we'll continue our series on horror. By the way, if you're watching earlier and you saw me wear that weird mask, that's actually a Lee Majors Fall Guy mask, but it was made in China. And so it looks nothing like the actor Lee Majors or the character of Colt Seavers. It looks really spooky. And to me, it looks like it's a throwback to a horror movie called Alice, Sweet Alice, or otherwise known as The Communion, which starred Brooke Shields. And she plays like a little psycho, or so we think. That's a very underrated, very creepy movie. Brooke Shields probably wasn't even 12 years old. She'd done a lot of strange movies, like early in her career, like before The Blue Lagoon, like Tilt, which is about pinball, and Pretty Baby, which is really a controversial movie about prostitution. But getting back to horror, so we're going to get into the slasher movies next week, actually this Sunday in our Facebook group live, and then it'll be on YouTube immediately after, but it'll be live at 3:30 Atlanta time, Eastern Daylight Time. Going to cover the 40th anniversary of several slasher horror movies, and it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. It's going to be a great show. And then here in YouTube land, a week from tonight, we're going to conclude our nostalgic Podblast Flashback on horror. And we got a lot of stories. And by the way, I don't know if I should share this tonight or later, but I did audition for Greg Nicotero, who's now a big time director. And he was the head and still is of a special effects company called K&B Effects. And I went to zombie school and I auditioned for The Walking Dead, and I was one of the featured walkers. And it was a great experience. And I looked nothing like what they wanted. They wanted tall and thin, and I'm short and dumpy. But Greg liked my performance as well as 3 others. He picked 4 people from a group of maybe 30 to be what they call featured, where you do a stunt with a squib and, you know, you're seen pretty prominently. And I had the pleasure of doing that and being a lifelong horror fan. It was just such a treat. We were at downtown Atlanta back in early August 2010, Baker Street, if you know the Atlanta, Georgia area. And they brought in tanks, prop tanks, to make it look like a war zone downtown. You probably remember the pilot to The Walking Dead. So started working on the pilot, but in the episode Guts, which is the 2nd episode of season 1, I'm the dude you see Merle shoot through his scope, through his sights. He snipes me. Here's a little picture of it for the camera, and then I'll get back to more traditional stuff. But I want to share with something with you guys about Walking Dead that's personal and private. So here's a shot of me in the show, and they almost did a Willem scream in post production, like you hear you know I'm talking about, the Willem scream. When I get shot in post production, they added a pretty interesting sound effect. But anyway, that's me and Merle's sights and Guts on The Walking Dead. Now, what I want to share, and here's a picture from episode 5 where they find the CDC, and it's kind of grainy, but that's how I looked after the fact. It's a different episode, but you can see the head wound. But it was I'll talk about it in greater detail when we get to talking about zombie movies next time. But I do want to share this with you. Look at this keychain. Those that are watching on YouTube, it's kind of cool. There's before. There's Merle Dixon, and there's after. That's when he shot me. But it's kind of a cool little keychain, unofficial merchandise. And I'm not selling it. Not selling it. So AMC, cool your jets. I'm just showing it. It's the last one I have anyway. But at the audition, they gave us this writer's guide, because this was before The Walking Dead had aired. And, you know, there have been productions where there's fast zombies. And so they wanted it known very clearly that they want, God dang it. Fuck. Frack. Excuse my language. Frack, like Battlestar Galactica. That hum just really pisses me off. God dang it. I'm going to lose it. You're going to see me lose it. They wanted it clearly known that they want these zombies to be slow, lumbering, like they were in Night of the Living Dead, George Romero's Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead. They wanted that. And so I have this from my audition. It's a Walker Motivation and Movement Writer's Guide. This is from the writers of the show. And I can't read the whole thing. I might get in trouble, but it says, "Welcome to The Walking Dead. As a quote unquote walker, you will be expected to behave in a consistent manner in terms of movement. There's quite a lot of personality conveyed in minimal, simplistic movements, and the intention is to go back to the classic Night of the Living Dead for inspiration. There is nothing comical about how these zombies exist, hunt or kill. They are lethal and can do a tremendous amount of damage in a short period of time. They are ravenous. A, functional movement. Where and what you need to do to serve the needs of the series. B, effect on the viewer. What will the viewer take from your performance? C, character driven. What internally and externally are motivations and capabilities of your zombie?" Anyway, it's pretty cool. I'll share more with this later when we get more towards the slasher horror movies. And I appreciate everyone tuning in. I appreciate Barry King calling in tonight. It's your last chance to call if you want to talk about horror, focusing on the classic Universal monster movies and the early horror movies leading up to, say, 1955. 55 is where we're at. Next time, we'll talk about The Fly, and we'll pick up where we left off, get into Psycho, get into the 80s movies. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that'll be right here, YouTube Live on the Nostalgic Podblast YouTube channel. Please subscribe. We're doing some giveaways. That's what's in it for you. And, Sunday, I'm also going to talk about some more current pop culture stuff, and I'll be with Barry and Alan Sanders, Barry King, Alan Sanders on BK on the air this Saturday live on Atlanta radio. It's going to be an awesome, awesome show, and we're going to wrap up Loki. I know this is a horror show, but I don't know if you dig the Disney Plus streaming shows that Marvel's put out, like WandaVision, but I'm very opinionated when it comes to the finale of Loki, and we'll talk about it Saturday. Anyway, you'll have a good night. 770-438 is the number if you want to call in to talk horror. You can see things in the background. I have other horror items to share next time that I didn't want to give away. I didn't want to give away all of the surprise. I want you coming back next time to see what I have in my collection. And I'll share more of my Walking Dead stories too towards the end of the show. You can see Alien behind me. That was a great horror movie. We're going to talk about Fear with Mark Wahlberg and Reese Witherspoon. That has a great cast. I consider that a horror movie. So let me in your fucking house. Remember that scene in the trailer where he's looking through, well, they censor it in the trailer. So let me in your house. That was a scary ass movie. It's kind of like Cape Fear. Well, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about more modern horror and the psychological horror and some effects. And anyway, I'm going to leave you now as a segue into next week's show and the Sunday show. Here's some interesting sound effects from Friday the 13th. Here's Jason. I love that. The use of sound and music. The music is what really makes it terrifying in the movie theater, I think. And horror movies are great date movies, especially if you're on like a first date or an early date with someone, you can get your arm around her and get close. So we'll be back next time. Same nostalgic time, same nostalgic channel, the Nostalgic Podblast channel on the Nostalgic Podblast Flashback. Don't be scared and be safe. Good night from the Nostalgic Podblast.